Thank you and welcome to the November 10th, 2021 meeting of the City of Lake Forest Plan Commission. I am John Dixon, Chairman of the Plan Commission. And at this time, I'd like to ask the other members of the commission to introduce themselves. And as you appear on my screen, why don't we start with Commissioner Douglas?
Steve Douglas.
Louis Pickus.
Commissioner Barrett Davey.
And Jamie Moorhead.
Thanks, everybody. And as that introduction was an illustration, it's going to be a little bit awkward tonight. So please, not only would I ask for patience, not only from the my fellow commissioners, but also from the ladies and gentlemen of the audience that are going to be calling in, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But from the City of Lake Forest, the staff is Kathy Cernak, who's also here this evening. The first item before the commission this evening is consideration of the minutes from, believe it or not, the April 14th, 2021 meeting and the June 9th, 2021 respective meetings. Are there any comments, questions, or clarifications on either one of these sets of minutes?
I have none.
Hearing none, and those, I know there's a couple of the commissioners maybe that obviously weren't even on the Plan Commission at the time of these, or may not, those that were may not have been in attendance at these respective meetings, but please know you don't have to have been present at these meetings to vote on these minutes. So with that said, do I have a motion to accept the April and June minutes?
So
Chairman,
moved.
I'll second that motion.
Chairman Dixon, I do need to do a roll call vote when you're ready.
I am ready. Go ahead.
Commissioner Moorhead,
Aye.
Commissioner Davey,
Aye.
Commissioner Pickus,
Aye.
Commissioner Douglas,
Aye.
Chairman Dixon.
Aye.
And if I forget to do a roll call vote, please remind me until you're at the very end. You can adjourn without a roll call vote, but let's help me keep on track here. Thank you.
No, thank you, Kathy. All right, the first matter and only matter before the commission this evening, other than some housekeeping matters that'll come up at the end, but the first matter before the commission this evening is consideration of a request for approval of the redevelopment of the property located at 241 East Deer Path. The site is currently occupied by First Midwest Bank. At this point, I'd like to ask the commissioner members if there's any conflicts of interest or ex-party communication in regards to this matter. I would like to personally make a statement to that effect. And for the record, and as I've previously stated and disclosed in other meetings when the petitioner developer has presented, and for the sake of continued full disclosure, I'd like to state the following. I've previously engaged with the petitioner, Todd Altunian of Altunian Builders, and Peter Whitmer of Whitmer and Associates for a small residential remodeling project at my Lake Forest home. I have no other financial interest of any kind whatsoever with Mr. Altunian or Mr. Whitmer. My project is now complete. I do not have a conflict of interest in this case, and I am confident that I can act and function fairly and impartially on the matter that is presented here this evening. And with that stated, at this time, I'd like to swear in everyone who thinks they might want to speak either in support or in opposition of this matter or any other matter on the agenda this evening.
Chairman Dixon,
again,
can I
yes.
interrupt for 1 second and just have a point of inquiry, or maybe it's a point of order? But under section 159114 of the code, it looks like there's several items in the petitioner's application that are missing. I can list the numbers if you want, but I mean, there's maybe 10 items, and maybe I'm misreading it, but it looks like there's a significant amount of items that are missing. And before we go on, I'm worried that we can't do proper fact finding, fact finding without those documents.
For point of order, do you want to take those up when they come up, or are you trying to? I think that might be more appropriate. I know a lot of people are lined up here to speak this evening, and if we come to the conclusion that there are items that are incomplete and we can't make a ruling, maybe we can come to that conclusion at that time.
I have no objection to that. If you want to go that route, that's fine.
Okay. So at this time, thank you for raising that, Commissioner Moorhead. But at this time, we can move. Why don't we move forward, and as those items come up, we can address those and take appropriate action after we hear from those that are going to testify this evening. So everyone that is going to testify, I'd like to swear everyone in at this time. And again, it might be awkward to do it this way, but if you would sort of on your honor, stand where you are and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly state that the testimony you shall give in this matter shall be the truth and the whole truth and nothing but the truth? So help you God. Okay. With that, I will ask the petitioner to come forward for their presentation.
Good evening, Chairman Dixon and commissioners, staff, and guests. The petitioners, Peter and Todd, asked me to provide an introduction. My name is Ken Cadlick.
Thank you, Mr. Cadlick. Thank you. Go ahead.
All right. I'm a senior vice president and director of real estate for First Midwest Bank. And we own the subject property and have owned it for many years since our previous chairman and Lake Forest resident, Mr. Robert O'Meara acquired the property for the bank. And I think most of you are probably very familiar with this property. It is an aged property. It has a lot of square footage that we're not currently using. Much of it is no longer functional. And we're very happy being part of the community in Lake Forest and being in the downtown. But we would like to update and upgrade our presence within the downtown. And so we have reached a preliminary agreement with the petitioners for them to acquire the property from us and for us to be part of their new development. So with that introduction, I'd like to turn it over to Peter and Todd.
Mr. Whitmer, I have promoted you if you accept. Oh, I see you there.
All right. Thank you for that, Ken. I did, Kathy, want to have Lieu Aboda from KLA. What my plans for the presentation are to have our traffic engineer give a summary of his report, and then I'll follow up with my information. So if you can share the screen, I'll actually share the content, and then if Abola could, Lieu could make his presentation.
He should be coming through here. Mr. Abuna, are you with us?
Maybe Peter can proceed and then,
Yeah, then I guess he having a little bit of a hard time connecting in here. So I'll go ahead and go through the information that I have. And then if Lieu can follow after me, then we'll finish up with Lieu's information. So this is a site, the overall site plan for our project, and shows its relationship to Deer Path and Bank Lane. The existing site has 4 drive-throughs. In the south end of it has 3 curb cuts. And as Ken had mentioned, they purchased it in 1974 and did a pretty major renovation, additions and modifications to the existing building, which is in pretty much the same configuration as what they did originally in 1974. We're had looked at the building and really got a report about it, and are planning on demolishing the building and building a new structure. The things that we're, just to kind of cover what we're asking for tonight, is we're not asking for an approval on the appearance of the building. The elevations, the renderings that we provided are conceptual, and we're working on those, and we'll present those to the Historic Preservation Commission for review from that body. Also, we'll have the demolition criteria, which we provided a report which we had from Susan Benjamin. You have there for information only, but that is going to be reviewed by the Historic Preservation Commission, and that is their privy to approve that section of it. So what we are seeking tonight is really for the zoning of the project. So the pieces so that we can move forward and have confidence that the Planning Commission is in agreement with our zoning, and that we can rely on that moving forward. What we're meeting is the special use permit criteria. Kathy outlined that in the staff report, and I'll just have a few things that to add to what her comments were in the staff report. The first one being it's not detrimental or endangering the public health, safety, morals, or the comfort or the welfare. The use that we're proposing is a current use actually that's on the site. It's commercial drive-through, and also has 4 residents on the second. We're really reducing the amount of drive-throughs from 4 to 1, and we're reducing the curb cuts from 3 to 1. So we feel that is actually improving the safety of the site. The other thing that we're doing is the number 2 being for the enjoyment of the immediate vicinity and not diminishing property values. We feel confident that our project would, of the residential sales of these, would increase the real estate taxes of the existing property, and the sales price of the property itself would raise the values of the surrounding properties on that. The existing use is by right, so we're not asking for a use variation. The third being we don't impede a normal orderly development of improvements of the surrounding properties. I would say that this property is really one of the last ones to be improved. The one to the west has been improved. To the south, with the apartment building, has been improved. So I think we're really the one that hasn't been improved, sort of the missing tooth in the site plan. As I mentioned before, number 4, the appearance review board will be done by the Historic Preservation Commission, and we will proceed with them after the zoning approval. Adequate utilities and roadways. I think the traffic study indicates that the existing conditions for our project are adequate and meet the standards that they have set in that report. The other thing that we need to meet for the criteria of the 2.0 FAR is residential use above the first floor, which we're proposing 2 levels of residential above the first floor space, and then that the drive-through must be within the building or constructed to avoid curb cuts. Both of these we're meeting. This is the site plan, or the floor plans of the 2 upper levels of condominiums We're planning on having residential on those, varying in square footage from about 1,800 square feet to a little under 3,900 square feet for the largest unit. So they vary in size quite a bit. Plus 2 affordable units will be as part of that. The underground drive-through is the existing ATMs are really used minimally. And so fortunately, the bank really only requires one drive-through lane. And we're proposing to have that in the north end of the first level of the underground parking. And so the same curb cut that's used for the entrance and exit of the parking facility will be used for the drive-through. You can see there at the north where they stack up. The drive-through kiosk is here, and then so they would stack there. We reviewed this extensively with the First Midwest, and they're comfortable with this design situation. And also, it's been looked at and through with KLA and our parking consultant. Other 2 criteria, 2 of the 3 of the criteria that are met, we're only required to meet actually 1 of these. Number 4 is, these just correspond the numbers to the zoning code, which requires 50% of the parking to be underground, which we meet. And then number 6 is to require the setback of 5 feet or more and 20% of the open space. So this is the 2 levels of parking that we're proposing. The first being for the retail or for the office space and its bank users, and then the lower level being for the residential condo units above. And so that's our parking that we're required, plus the angled parking on the streets and that we've increased on the east side too. Then the additional setbacks. So on the north side of the building, we have at the ends and the projections, we have 5 feet, and then we've increased it to 9 feet. At the other parts of the building on the north side, the west side, we have 7-foot setback. On the south side, we have a 5-foot setback. There's a walkway that goes around our building that allows people to egress out of the building, out of the stairwells, and then out to either direction. And then on the east side, we've really added the space. It varies. It's tighter up at the ends, which is 13 feet and 19 feet at the center, which this open space is approximately 20% of the site. And what it has is the sidewalk in the corner is open here. You can walk underneath the building here, walk along the sidewalk here and continue down the pedestrian way. Or you can walk underneath the building and then out through so that you can get down to the other spaces under a covered walkway. And then this corner is open underneath the building to give some coverage at the corner of the building. We also integrated the landscape in terms of the overall plan of the committee, which looked at the landscape and the streetscape of the Deer Path corridor. The other thing I would just note here, I can note this angle parking that we're proposing, which increases, there'll be an easement that's created for the public use access on our private space for that, increasing the parking this way. There is part of the parking study which would allow for Bank Lane to be one way going south. We show it 2 ways here, but if the city chooses to do and modify the traffic to one way going south, then we would pick up additional parking spaces on the east side of Deer Path. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to the board. And as I said, tonight, I know there's a lot of information that was given from us with renderings and elevations. And what I'd like to say is I really like not to discuss this because that will be covered in the HPC meeting. And I know some correspondence I saw with people sending things in really had more to do with the HPC meeting than this zoning. So I'd like to really respond only to what we're talking about tonight, which is the criteria for the FAR and the drive-through. So with that, I'll turn it back over.
I believe Mr. Abuna is on the panel. If
Yes, I am here.
Oh, great.
You still have a portion of your 20 minutes.
Okay, well, let me go back to the site plan, and I will. There we go.
Perfect.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, Lieu, if you
Yeah,
want
thanks.
to give your.
Yeah, thanks, Peter. Good evening. My name is Lieu Abuna. I'm a principal with KLOA. We conducted the traffic study for the proposed development. And essentially our study area looked at the four corners of the block where this site sits right now. We looked at, conducted traffic counts during the weekday morning and weekday evening peak periods to examine the operations, the existing operations of these intersections during those commuter peak hour of traffic. As you know, the bank currently has multiple curb cuts into the property. There is an in-only curb cut that aligns with Forest Avenue of Deer Path Road, and along Bank Lane, there are two curb cuts. One that is closest to the intersection of Deer Path and Bank Lane, which is and it's an in-only, and then another one which is further south. That's an exit-only curb cut. The plan here is to consolidate all these curb cuts into one. So the existing inbound driveway on Deer Path will be eliminated. And the one that is closest to Deer Path of Bank Lane will also be eliminated. And we'll have one in and out access drive on Bank Lane. Obviously, that consolidation of these curb cuts will have a positive impact on the traffic flow, both for vehicular and pedestrian movements along those frontages. It's a positive benefit to the area. Our analysis of the intersections indicated that they are operating within acceptable standards with adequate level of service and delay. We generated the traffic for the development for the various uses that are proposed using trip generation rates that are published by the Institute of Transportation Engineers, and that's typical and acceptable in the traffic engineering industry. We assigned that traffic to these intersections and we reanalyzed them. We assumed growth in the background traffic conditions and carried this growth over a 5-year period. And what the analysis again showed that these intersections will continue to operate with an acceptable level of service and delay without significant deterioration in the level of service. Same thing, we'll look at the access drive and the location of the access drive. Approximately 200 feet south of Deer Path provides adequate separation such that cars will be able to enter and exit the site without being in the influence of the intersection or the queuing that might occur either at Deer Path Road to the north or Illinois Road to the south. We also looked at an alternative analysis where we looked at Bank Lane being one lane southbound between Deer Path and Illinois Road. The analysis showed that any recirculation of traffic that may result will not have a detrimental impact on the adjacent intersections and that the traffic flow in the area will continue to operate adequately. In fact, making that section of the road one-way will have added benefit to the intersection of Deerfield and Bank Lane, whereas it's going to remove any conflicting movements with Bank Lane north of Deer Path Road being restricted to northbound and Bank Lane south being restricted to southbound. That reduces the conflicts, and particularly no traffic would be exiting from Bank Lane. In addition, there'll be an opportunity to add additional parking on the east side of Bank Lane if that is desired for the area. That concludes my presentation, and I'm happy to answer questions later.
Thank you, Mr. Kadlec, Mr. Whitmer, and Mr. Abuna. Thank you for that presentation. Why don't we turn now to the identification of the issues by city staff. Ms. Erneck, can you please go through some of these items for us?
Sure. Thank you, Chairman Dixon. First, I want to review where the site is. I certainly received some calls. There seemed to be some confusion. So the site that is proposed for redevelopment is located on the southwest corner of Deer Path and Bank Lane. It is the site of First Midwest Bank Building. That building is addressed as 241 East Deer Path. The site extends about halfway between Bank Lane and Oakwood on the south side of Deer Path. So just wanted to clarify that. First, I wanted to just briefly review the Plan Commission's role and what is not under the Plan Commission's purview. This redevelopment proposal does include a request for approval of demolition of the existing structure, the existing building, and the ATMs that adjoin it, as well as the surface parking lot. This petition also includes extensive design review of the proposed building, hardscape, landscape. Those elements of this petition are not under the purview of the Plan Commission. And it is always a bit of a conundrum what comes first. It is not unusual for petitions to come forward to the Plan Commission for some initial reaction. And that really is why we're here tonight, before the petitioner, the property owner, continue to invest in further detailing all aspects of this petition, providing additional information. It is not unusual for petitions to come forward with some initial assessment of the zoning aspects. So we know this is at the start of the process. We know there is a long way to go. Certainly tonight, it's appropriate for the commission to ask questions, to request additional information. We may have information in the file that we don't ordinarily include in the Plan Commission packet. So most important is that there is a long way to go. We do anticipate prior to this going before the Historic Preservation Commission, we anticipate further work on the design, further refinement. And in fact, the petitioner was reluctant to have the current schematic elevations included in the packet. It was really staff that insisted that we include those really to give a sense of where this is at. So again, we know we are at the start of the process. The plan.
Kathy, can I just ask a question just for clarification? I know you just went over it. So the exterior architectural appearance of the building, the design aspect of the building of this and of the site, and the proposed landscaping and hardscaping and signage and the overall site in general, that's subject to the review and the approval of the Historic Preservation Commission. Is that correct?
That's correct. And in fact, that is one of the criteria that I will speak to in a moment.
And just one more point of clarification, if I could, the approval of the proposed demolition of the existing building, that is also not the purview of the Plan Commission, but of the Historic Preservation Commission. Is that correct?
That is correct. We did provide some material pertaining to the demolition in the Plan Commission's packet. Again, sometimes it's hard to completely dissect what information the commission will want and what we should reserve. What is under the Plan Commission's purview are aspects of, or a determination of whether the proposed redevelopment is consistent with the zoning code, the applicable zoning code regulations, and the comp plan vision for the central business district. And one other point of clarification, it is, again, it's not unusual for a petitioner to come in and request the start of the public hearing, and the city has always deferred to that. We always encourage, whether it's someone building a a single family home or coming in with signage or coming with with a larger redevelopment request, we as a city have always encouraged early and often conversations. So that is part of what we're starting tonight. The request before you is for approval of a special use permit for a central business district plan development. No zoning variances are requested. There is a height variance requested. That too is under the purview of the Historic Preservation Commission. The central business district plan development provisions, it's a section that was added to the code when there was a significant rewrite of the business district zoning provisions in 2003. I believe it was under the direction of then Mayor Howard Kerr. And this section, the CBD plan development provisions, that was added specifically as incentives, as development incentives to encourage residential development, to encourage some flexibility within the regulations, to really return residential development to our central business district. Over the last perhaps 3 decades, about 100 residential units that used to be located in our central business district have been lost. So in 2003, during this extensive discussion of the business district zoning regulations, there was considerable discussion about how to incent property owners as redevelopment occurred, and there was an acknowledgement that there were sites that would be redeveloped. What could the city offer to incent that redevelopment to include residential units? One of the incentives was an increase in the floor area ratio. Essentially, it's the density of the building, the square footage of the building. And the second incentive that was offered was an opportunity to modify the on-site parking requirements to allow payment in lieu of on-site parking if in fact the parking standards were not met. As you know, most of the development in the core area in the B4 zoning district does not have on-site parking, does not have surface parking. And in fact, that historically was intentional to allow some compact development and to have parking on the outskirts. In order to be granted a central business district plan development through a special use permit, the standard special use permit criteria need to be satisfied. Those were briefly touched on by Mr. Whitmer and they're detailed in the staff report. I won't take the time to review those, but we'll be happy to answer questions. In addition, the following criteria need to be met. Above the first floor, the structure, the building needs to be entirely residential unless it's demonstrated that residential units at a particular location would not serve the purpose of the CBD plan development provisions. That is, if it could be demonstrated that office was more beneficial at a particular location. But the first criteria is that above the first floor, the building must be entirely residential units. The second criteria is that if a drive-through is proposed, that it must either be off-site or within a building. And the third criteria is that the Historic Preservation Commission must have granted conceptual approval to the development. As was noted, this development has not yet gone to the Historic Preservation Commission. And again, it's not unusual for a developer to want to get some initial nod that the proposed development appears to be consistent with the zoning code. In addition to those three criteria, at least one of the following criteria must be met for this type of development. At least 50% of the parking spaces must be below grade. That criteria is fully satisfied. In addition, 25% of the site must be retained as open space. That criteria is not fully met, but again, one criteria needs to be fully met. With the increased setback along Bank Lane, the small pocket park at the corner of Bank Lane and Deer Path, with the open area under the arcade and some of the additional setback along Deer Path, the retained open space on the site is about 20% if you also added the increased setbacks on the west and south side, which probably isn't appropriate. You do get to approximately that 25%. And the third criteria is increased setback. There is a setback requirement along the streetscape, Deer Path and Bank Lane of 5 feet. It is slightly increased along portions of the Deer Path streetscape, and there is a significantly greater setback along Bank Lane. So of those three, one or more must be met. In this case, one is fully met and two are partially met. There are also specific criteria for drive-through facilities. Again, those are detailed in your staff report. Happy to answer questions, but I won't go through those. So based on the information that's currently provided, based on a preliminary review, staff does believe that the zoning aspects of the project are in alignment with the requirements in the code. So the Plan Commission tonight certainly can choose to continue this matter pending further refinement of the petition and pending the HPC review getting underway. If the Plan Commission feels strongly that the zoning aspects are not in alignment with the code, then outright denial of the petition would be appropriate. The Plan Commission could also, if you chose to do so, recommend approval. That would certainly be pending, would be conditioned upon conceptual review by the HPC, or the Commission's recommendation would be moot. I will note that you have received a considerable amount of correspondence, some late today, some even within the last hour and a half, which you have not yet received, simply because we couldn't get it to you. I did, finally, Mr. Chairman, if you will indulge me at the request of Ms. Lopat, I wanted to briefly summarize the correspondence received, not the substance, because I don't want to mischaracterize anybody, but I did want to be responsive to this request. In total, based on our count as of right now, there's been 57 pieces of correspondence submitted. About 35 of those pieces did not have addresses. The others are various residents who submitted correspondence within Lake Forest. You also received correspondence, some significant correspondence from the Preservation Foundation, which detailed all sorts of aspects. Because much of this correspondence also speaks to the items under the purview of the Historic Preservation Commission, we will forward everything addressed to the Plan Commission to the Historic Preservation Commission as well. That concludes my comments, Mr. Chairman, and I would be happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Ms. Cerniak. I have just again, a clarifying question, and this definitely comes up from time to time for the Plan Commission, and that being, sort of the role of the Plan Commission, and it's something that I think we come back to or need to come back to, and I just would like you to clarify it. But the Plan Commission reviews and holds the public hearings on requests for special use permits related to development within the city's, pardon me, the city's business zoning and historical districts. Is that correct?
That is correct. If this proposal came forward for redevelopment of the site with square footage, with a floor area ratio of 1.25, no residential above, and no request for variances, the Plan Commission wouldn't even be involved. It would just be the Historic Preservation Commission. So you are correct, Mr. Chairman. Because a special use permit is being requested for a CBD plan development, that is why this is before you.
Okay, and there's a lot of confusing terms or legal technical terms I'm sure that the audience might be rolling their eyes at in trying to understand. But again, to try for sake of simplification, what's before us is the special use permit for a central business district plan development, correct?
That's correct.
And so there's going to be, and there are in Mr. Whitmer's presentation, and I'm sure there's going to be questions surrounding the special use permit, and you touched on some of them, the criteria for that, as well as a central business district plan development and the criteria and requirements for that. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah. So I think that's what we're going to focus on here this evening. And then I think after we, I'm sure, get a lot of questions out there, we'll take the appropriate steps as determined by the rest of the commission here this evening. So with that, maybe I'll turn it over to see if there's any questions or clarifications from other commission members to the petitioner or the staff. Maybe I'll start with Commissioner Pickus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I do have a two-part question for Ms. Cerniak. There was talk about the possibility of turning Bank Lane into a one-way street heading south. I'm wondering, number one, how many parking spaces could that yield? If that was done, would that then make them compliant with the parking requirement? And the second part of the question is has the city engineer or the city taken a look at this? Is there any comment or thought from the city's perspective on whether this could be a possibility or not?
Sure. The notion of converting Bank Lane south of Deer Path to one-way south really came out of the recent Deer Path streetscape improvement discussions. So when the developer came forward with a concept, the city actually encouraged him to implement that idea. We did, as part of the Deer Path streetscape improvement discussions, engineering staff was involved. The police department was involved, and in fact, one day they went out and parked all their cars diagonally along the west side of Bank Lane, and they strongly support the one-way configuration. So that was an aspect of the project that the city pushed. Yes, and I believe in the staff report, it is noted the existing number of spaces and parallel spaces along the west side of Bank Lane and the number of diagonal we could get. I can look that up, but I don't know that off the top of my head. The petitioner asked about including those spaces in their parking count because they would then meet the required parking. Because they will be parking spaces on the public street, we didn't feel it was appropriate to include those in the calculation. It is important to note, though, that in order to accommodate those diagonal spaces, the city will need to require the developer to grant an easement over the east portion of their property. So they will essentially be giving a portion of their property for public use. Does that answer your question, Commissioner Pickus, fully?
Yeah, I thought, was I mistaken? I thought there was talk about possible diagonal spaces on the east side of Bank Lane as well? Or just on the west side?
Just on the west side. However, it may be possible, and we would need to do some further work with Mr. Abuna and with our traffic engineer. It may be possible to add some parallel spaces on the east side of Bank Lane if that street is converted to south. Diagonal on the west, because we take part of this property parallel on the east.
Okay.
Possibly.
Yeah, okay. I'm sorry. I think I misunderstood, and I thought I heard that there could have been diagonal spaces on the east side as well. So, okay. Thank you very much, Kathy. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Sorry, my bad. Thank you, Commissioner Pickus. Commissioner Davey?
Yeah, I don't have any questions. I think Commissioner Pickus asked a question specific to the parking that I was interested in as well. Obviously, that's something that will be addressed as the process moves forward. I think specific to what's within our purview as a plan commission. The package was very helpful. I think we got about a foot thick, about a telephone book worth of material in advance of this meeting, of which I read all of it and made a lot of notes, and just be interested to hear, obviously, from folks in the community and obviously the rest of our commissioners as to other material that they believe we need to be reviewing. So, thanks.
Thank you, Commissioner Davey. Commissioner Douglas?
Questions for Kathy Cerniak. First of all, is there any limit to the number of parking spaces that can be eliminated from the requirement through the payment in lieu process?
There isn't a number specified in the code. What I did note in the staff report is fairly common in some of the current planning dialogue is that many municipalities are reducing the number of required parking spaces, specifically to encourage the use of mass transit, which obviously has taken a hit, and to encourage pedestrian activity. But no, there is nothing in the code that says at a maximum a certain number can be reduced.
Okay, and then given that partial solution may be, to have these diagonal spaces that are sort of half on public property and half on an easement, is there actually a formula in the code that dictates the amount of payment in lieu, or is it negotiated for every single project, every separate project?
It is negotiated based on the current cost of a parking space.
Okay.
The city certainly has used payment in lieu of on-site parking in the past in the central business district.
Okay. With regard to the possibility that Bank Lane might become one way, was it considered at all the potential effect that could have on other businesses on Bank Lane in terms of their visibility to drive-by traffic or access, for folks who may not want to drive around the block or anything like that?
It was discussed really at length. The Deer Path Streetscape Improvement Committee included representatives of some of the businesses. We held a couple of public information sessions, and the group also, at least on one occasion and maybe more, actually walked the street to really be on the street and experience the streetscape in real time. So that, it's certainly on balance, but I think there was concern about the sight lines at Bank Lane and Deer Path, people making right turns and left turns, and really an interest in trying to see some additional open space. It was noted that in front of Suites there, even though there isn't a lot of open space, it really is a gathering space. And it was discussed that it could be nice to have that open space and some open views, reducing congestion on Deer Path by changing Bank Lane to one way. So it was a pretty extensive discussion at that time.
Okay. With regard to the FAR bonus that from whatever the current zoning allows to the 2.0, is the definition of FAR actually housed somewhere in the zoning ordinance, or in terms of what the measurement involves? Is it to the outside walls, and are balconies included, or would the arcade be included? And which part of the city government actually has jurisdiction over confirming that the FAR is adhered to properly?
We would require detailed plans. I will have to look into whether it speaks specifically to the arcade being covered, and interior exterior wall, but we can certainly get your response to that.
Yeah, okay. And then the final question, you mentioned that that the height of the building would be the purview of the HPC, but I also noted that the 35-foot height limit is mentioned in the B4 district section of the zoning code. So if can you help clarify, are we off the hook in considering height because HPC is going to address it, or do we both need to address it?
I believe it's appropriate for both groups to address it. The HPC formally has the purview to grant a variance, but certainly it is, as you noted, in the B4 zoning district. So I think it is appropriate for the Plan Commission to consider that and provide some direction or thought on that.
Okay, thanks. That concludes my questions.
Thank you, Commissioner Douglas. Commissioner Moorhead.
Thank you. I'll just follow up with Commissioner Douglas. What is the height of the building?
I can refer back to the plans, and you can also, I mean, this is the question and answer, so we can bring Mr. Whitmer back to respond to your questions if you'd like. Mr. Chairman, you okay with that?
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine. Yeah, obviously this is, as you just pointed out, questions not only to the petitioner, but to the city. And Commissioner Moorhead, yeah, that would probably be a good question for the petitioner if Mr. Whitmer's on.
Mr. Whitmer, I have promoted you back to the panel. And if you'd like any other representatives for the petition promoted, I can do that as well.
Sure.
And Mr. Whitmer, before you answer that question, and I'm going to hijack Commissioner Moorhead's question, or just add on to the height question, because it was something that I was looking at too in answering the question, Mr. Whitmer. If you could also talk about the elevation on the site, because I think there's a grade or elevation, and I don't mean to steal Commissioner Moorhead's thunder, or maybe on his follow-up question, but if you could take that in consideration of your height question as well.
Sure. Let me address the height. So yeah, the site does slope about 5 feet from the northwest corner to the southwest corner, and also to the southeast corner. And so at the short, as I say, our elevations that we provided and the information that we provided was preliminary, and we're looking at opportunities to improve it or change it and make modifications as we see fit. But currently we have the front pieces of the design at 36 foot 11. The parapet, top of the parapet wall would be 40 foot 1 at the low side down at, and then it would be approximately 5 feet taller, so 45 foot 6 at the very south east corner for the top of the parapet wall. So those, and what we do is, and one of the things that's really important for us is that we provide high quality units for this, so that we have a minimum of 9 foot high ceilings in our in the residential units, and then 12 or 11 foot 6 in the commercial space. So that really determines the overall height of the buildings. On top of that, we would have, I'm sure people will be interested in the penthouses that are on top of that. And so they would be another to the top of the roofs of the penthouses, which are not visible from any place on the streetscape, would be 46 foot 6 would be the height for the penthouses.
And Commissioner Moorhead, I will direct your attention to the section of your packet, design-related background information. It's the fourth 11 by 17 page in there, if that's helpful.
Thank you. As long as we've got Mr. Whitmer, I can ask a couple other questions of the petitioner. Can you outline how the development satisfies the intent of the code to preserve the character of the central business district? I guess including generally the historic and village character and the community / quality of life.
Sure. One of the things I think we strive for in the development is providing housing for our Lake Forest residents. And as Kathy mentioned, the whole reason for the rezoning in 2003 was to encourage residential development within the CBD. And really that was to get people back to the CBD to use goods and services within the CBD to keep businesses and restaurants in that busy. I think lots has changed since 2003. I think our population has aged in Lake Forest, and that we're finding there's a real lack of high quality housing available for older people within the CBD. So that is really the market for what we're developing here is really keeping people from Lake Forest to stay in Lake Forest longer. And we think that this project absolutely does do that. This project is, so I think from the use, that does keep the character of Lake Forest, keeps the businesses healthy and strong and full, and keeps our residents who've been long-term residents here, and they stay in Lake Forest, and they continue to be participants in our all of the aspects of the quality of things here in town.
Okay, and then could you speak to the historic character of the CBD?
Sure. The historic, it's interesting to see the development since Market Square was developed. I think that it's changed over time, and this site being one of them. So that the historic character of our buildings over time and over generations really change in terms of the design ideas. So you have the 1920s buildings that were built. You have the Stanley Anderson building that is just south of this, which was the apartment building done in the 60s. You have the Pesquazi building across the street, which was done in the 80s. You have the postmodern building, which took elements of Market Square and sort of applied them to that design. So I think every century or every 10 years, it seems like there's different pieces. And I think that's what makes the quality of Lake Forest great, that there isn't this singularity of design elements. I think the scale of the design that we the solutions that we come up with will be with the scale, the streetscape, the windows will be in the things. I mean, these are really the privy and the questions that will be answered at the HPC
Right.
when we bring that design elements forward.
Right, I understand. It's part of the section 159114. Another part of that requests a plan illustrating how the building and overall site can be adaptively reused in the future by an alternative use. And my question is, have you given any consideration to that?
Absolutely. I think one of the difficulties that we find is, because our site slopes, and this is a rather large site, is that we keep the first floor level so that the subdivision of spaces on the first floor are not hampered by a change in grade. Not only that allows us to adapt different uses for the first floor. So I think that there's access. Our walkway that's parallel to that on the east side allows for multiple tenants. If they wanted to break their spaces up into different areas, you would be able to do that. In the elevation of the deer path, again, different entrances allowed to be sized in different spaces so that that could be adapted very easily.
Okay. Thank you. Kathy, a couple of questions on the zoning aspects. For the FAR, so the FAR is the ratio by dividing the gross floor area by the zoning lot. Correct?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. And in the zoning lot, do you back out the I think there's a 5-foot setback on Deer Path and a 5-foot setback on Bank Lane. Do you back those out, or are you doing the FAR calculation on the entire lot? So are you doing the buildable area or the whole lot? So I guess
The FAR calculation we did is on the whole lot, I believe. But again, following up on Commissioner Douglas's question, we will go back and see if there's any more precise definition or something that we've missed on that, but we can certainly relook at that calculation. But yes, my understanding and how we've done it in the past is based on the total square footage of the lot.
Okay. In your staff report, in this area where you're talking about the FAR, I think it's this area, you referenced the national building codes, or you make reference to it. I wasn't sure what that meant. And then I guess my follow-up question, is that part of the Lake Forest Code?
Yes, the city has adopted the national building codes probably since, I don't know, maybe 15 years ago or so. So yes, we do keep up with the national building codes. Our building code has some local amendments that may provide some stricter requirements. For instance, we used to have a requirement for cast iron plumbing. We have modified that. But yes, we are ruled by the national codes, building codes, mechanical, state plumbing code. So that
Okay.
was the reason for the reference.
Okay. In the staff report, I think it's page 7, you say rooftop terraces or occupied roofs are part of the unit below. So with that in mind, I'm confused about the rooftop terraces or roof terraces or whatever we're going to call them, decks. I searched the Lake Forest Code. I didn't find any provision allowing, like, regulating them. And maybe I'm missing it. So that's question 1. But then 2, if they are, in my mind, either there's a provision in the code that regulates and allows for rooftop terraces, or in the alternative, the rooftop terraces are part of the unit below and regulated by the unit below. So it seems like they would be either separate or an accessory use to the unit below. Is that a fair understanding?
There is no specific reference in the local code. We neither prohibit them. We don't have anything more stringent than the national codes. The national code, and we did have our plans examiner study this in depth. The national code does consider rooftop terraces as part of the unit below. It's not a separate floor. Stories or floors are defined as the space between a floor and the rafters or the roof above. So we
Right.
took
I saw
that
that.
definition directly from the national code, which is what we turn to when there's nothing more restrictive in our local code. Does that answer your question?
Yes. So then the follow-up to that is, if the rooftop terraces are part of the unit below, then it seems like they should be included in the gross floor area of the building when calculating FAR.
That's not how our plans examiner interpreted it. We can certainly go ask that question again, but again, it is not considered a floor. It is not considered a story. It is considered the roof of the unit below. But
Right.
happy to explore that question further.
That would be great, because I just want to point out, just to get this out there, that section 159.002, the accessory use, says a use located on the same zoning lot is incidental to and subordinate in purpose to the principal use, maintained solely for the comfort or benefit of the occupants or use. is an accessory use, which would be included in the gross floor area calculation in our code. So yes, if you can consider that, that would be great.
We will look into that.
On the roof egress, based on the plans, it looks like each unit on the third floor has a rooftop terrace, and then there's one egress for each unit. Is that, am I looking at that plan correctly? More or less?
Perhaps I'll let Mr. Whitmer respond to that.
Sure.
Yes.
Okay, so the International Building Code 2018, which is incorporated into the Lake Forest Code, it's section, just for reference, 1006.3.2 requires 2 egresses. And there are a couple of exceptions within the International Building Code that would allow it to be reduced to 1 egress. I don't think we have any detailed plans that would show things like distance to exits and so forth. But my question is, have you verified that the design that we have tonight satisfies the International Building Code?
We do not have a detailed design. We don't have construction plans before us, but we have had extensive discussions, and our plans examiners have done extensive research on your question, and I know you've raised it before. The access from a rooftop unit does need to be within a certain distance of a protected hallway or stairway, not unlike a bathroom or a bedroom. So yes, we would definitely review that as we got construction plans in, but the concept presented, a rooftop patio with access into a unit, that concept is consistent with what's permitted by the building codes that apply in Lake Forest.
Okay, switching subjects, just a few more questions. On the parking, the proposed diagonal parking and the proposed easement, grant of an easement by the petitioner to the city for that. In the staff report, you say that, I'm going to paraphrase, but more or less, we can, instead, in lieu of a payment in lieu, we can accept the easement, I think is what you said. And I'm paraphrasing, but I think that's what you said in the staff report. My question is, what is the ballpark for the payment? I know Commissioner Douglas asked that same question, but do you have a ballpark figure of what we're talking about per parking space?
We have not done in lieu of parking in a number of years, so I'd be hesitant to offer a number. We can certainly get you that information. And I believe perhaps it didn't come across this way, but my suggestion in the staff report was that if in fact a public easement is put over a portion of this property, it may be reasonable to consider a portion of that as partial payment if in fact any parking shortage results from the plan. So certainly something that could be considered, but just something to.
But we could also we could just call the easement an exaction, right? And have that as a condition to the development. I mean, in my quick analysis this afternoon, seems to satisfy both the Nolan and Dolan criteria for an exaction. So we could then get the easement as an exaction and get the payment in lieu. Conceptually.
Possibly. In my experience, the city hasn't necessarily required exactions, but certainly that would be all part of a negotiation.
Okay. And then just a couple more questions for Peter, and thanks for indulging me on this. For the development, has the petitioner done a shadow study of the building? Particularly with respect to Deer Path?
We made a massing model of the project, and it's pretty simple for us to do a shadow study on that. And it's basically, we've done streetscape elevations, and we've looked at how the height is on it compared to the other buildings along its Deer Path. And so I would say we've looked at the massing on that, and we can provide it's pretty simple for us to do that in a 3D way.
Okay. And then in the staff report and maybe in the petitioner's submittal, there's reference to this project won't, and again, I'm paraphrasing, won't generate excessive noise after hours or have after hours activities. And just to clarify, in the existing building that's right there right now, it's a bank that closes, keeps regular banking hours, I think. And this new proposal would have rooftop decks, which are, I don't think there's any restrictions in the city on outdoor use of space other than the nuisance provisions of the code. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And then my last question for Peter, on one of the schematics submitted, one of the first floor tenants is life working, like 11,365 square feet. My question is that the life working that's currently in Lake Forest?
Yes.
So they'd move? It's not, okay. It's not, and they'd move their office from one location in Lake Forest to another. They're not expanding to a second location.
Correct. That's my understanding, yes.
Okay, all right, that's all I have. Thanks for the time.
Thank you, Commissioner Moorhead. I have just a couple of follow-up questions, maybe for the city in regards to, because some questions have been raised on it, on the outdoor spaces of residential units. Are there other residential units in the central business district area that have residential outdoor spaces currently, Ms. Cernak, that you're aware of?
There certainly are condominiums in the central business district, for instance, near Deer Path Inn, certainly the new Kelmscott Park. Their outdoor spaces are either at ground level or balconies. And that really, we've seen outdoor spaces as being desirable for many decades. But rooftop patios is a new concept. It's certainly very popular. We have, since the two McKinley condo buildings have been constructed and in use, we certainly have been monitoring those very closely. Various city staff to date have received no complaints either about visibility of activity or people up there, or any noise complaints. And the police department also, I'm in touch with them. They have not received any complaints to date. But outdoor space, whether it's, we certainly have single family homes with rooftop spaces, but it is a new phenomenon.
And they're like, for example, the apartment complex, I think there's one on Oakwood, just sort of around the corner, Oakwood, and in between Vine and Illinois there. I think there's some there, and those have outdoor terraces both on the first floor and on the second floor, do they not? I think, what is
I believe
that?
so, yes.
Yes, okay. And that, do you have any idea, like those buildings there, those have been there since since when, like the 70s, late 70s, 80s?
I believe so, yes.
Okay. Switching over to some of the open topics that, certainly have been raised, and I know there's others, we touched on the height. There've been a lot of questions in regards, obviously, to the parking and the determined number of parking slots, and the in lieu of if the number of parking spaces aren't satisfied pursuant to the code, and the FAR, the floor area ratio, and how that's being considered not only from the vis-a-vis the entire site, but also these rooftops, and Commissioner Moorhead's question on that. I don't have any other, questions that haven't been viewed upon, asked and answered. You know, I certainly looked at the special use permit requirements, as well as the central, the CBD plan development requirements. And I think those questions have been answered for me. There is one that is open-ended, and maybe, you know, Mr. Whitmer can answer this, but the, you know, certainly under the CBD plan development and the special use permit, one of the three requirements is that the petition go and get conceptual approval from the Historic Preservation Commission before the Plan Commission decides on the special use permit. And maybe Mr. Whitmer can just explain sort of the thinking and the rationale behind that step here this evening of not getting the conceptual approval from the HPC.
Sure, I'll address that. Just so this is actually the third time we've been in front of the Planning Commission with this project. So it isn't, you know, we went conceptual the first two times, and what we felt was it really made sense to us to get the input of the Planning Commission and understand what their concerns are based on basically all the questions that you were raised here just in the staff, so that we would have a clear understanding moving forward to the HPC of what the position of the Planning Commission is for this, so that we don't have any issues going back and forth and saying, okay, letting the HPC be the zoning board or the Planning Commission and vice versa. So that's why we felt it made a lot of sense to us, and as we work with staff, is to bring this back and forth, or bring this back in front of this board for an action, so that we can really understand what the position is of the Planning Commission for this project. Because, you know, quite frankly, to move forward with this and to develop the plans and the elevations and the visuals of this is really expensive. And if the Planning Commission has no interest or has some real issue with our drive-through or our, let's just say the drive-through, well, then we won't be able to purchase the property, because the bank will not want to do the project if they can't get a drive-through underneath this. So we felt it really important to bring this in front of the Planning Commission and feel like this is the right step, so that then we can go to the HPC with information base that we get from this meeting in support of moving this project forward.
Okay, thank you. I have no further questions. Maybe at this time, we'd like to invite members of the public, and I think it was Commissioner Davey who said that, you know, there have been a lot of comments that have come in the form of emails. I know to the Plan Commission. And the city mentioned that there's probably an additional 30 or 40 that have come before the sort of the cutoff, if you will, or came after the cutoff to get the information to all of us in a timely manner. But I know I'm speaking for my fellow commissioners. We thank you for those comments. Those are important as we move through and forward with this process. And balancing the needs, not only obviously of the development, but those of the constituents of the broader Lake Forest. So, you know, at this time, we'd like to have those comments come from the public. I encourage you to use the raised hand feature on the bottom of your screen, on the bottom of your Zoom screen there, to allow the meeting to proceed as smoothly as possible. I'd also ask you for your patience and for those that aren't able to raise your hand, you may call the following number, telephone number. That number is 847-810-3643 to speak. Please note that you'll be placed on hold. Also, each speaker is going to be given 5 minutes. We ask that you state your name and address for the record. And as people are trying to call in, can you also do the same, state your name and your address. And there's also, and we got to add this from time to time, there's no need to repeat the comments that have been previously stated. And if your comments have already been addressed by other speakers, you can simply state your agreement with those comments or disagreement with those comments. I also request that you please be respectful to the other speakers and of their points of view. Please refrain from any comments or criticisms of other speakers. I welcome all the chance and opportunity to speak. You'll all get that chance. And with that, I'll turn over to Kathy. Did I miss anything in terms of that dissertation there? You're on mute there, Kathy. Kathy?
Sorry. I do see that we have a few hands raised and some callers. I'm going to stop my video and manage this other side right now. So appreciate your patience. And I will try to bring people in the order that you've signed up, but no promises. I'm just going to do the best I can here. So give me a minute. Mr. Ozian? Okay, hold on just a moment. I'm going to put you through. Go ahead, Mr. Ozian. You're on with the commission.
Hi, this is Laura Tarosian. I live at 401 East Westminster. Thank you all for all your time. I know it was a huge packet. Getting through it was an arduous task. So we appreciate all that you're doing. My husband is traveling tonight, but I do want to say neither he nor I fear another lawsuit. He's currently embroiled in the current one, but we do believe in the value of speaking out in Lake Forest. So in looking at the packet this weekend, it seems like this proposal raises more questions than answers, at least certainly as far as I'm concerned. I'm going to take a big picture approach because the fact that you're hearing it at all is frankly the greatest question tonight. You don't need to go far to hear people talking about this project. I mean, obviously social media, but it's on literally everyone's lips. And you know, that's a gift. That is a great gift to all of you. We live in a city where no matter what goes on in the world, everyone here loves Lake Forest. The heart of this beautiful town is obviously our central business district. And if you think that the heart is limited to Market Square, you're missing a great deal and doing a disservice to the brilliant architects who created a place that looks like a movie set and yet functions beautifully over 100 years on. It is safe to say our downtown is our brand. It is a place, yes, but it is truly a place in our heart. Why is the thing that unites us being used to divide us? We've all bought into this brand. We've all invested in it. A friend recently compared this current proposal to New Coke, the legendary failure of a storied brand that thought it needed reinventing. Lake Forest does not need reinventing. There must be a freeze on all development in the central business district until there is an open, transparent, strategic plan that includes meaningful input and engagement from all of Lake Forest residents. The city's website states the next strategic plan, I believe, is set for 2022. You guys, that's now less than 2 months away. Let's wait, let's get this right. I also want to just make one final point. I know there's a lot of confusion, certainly on my end, I have to say, on what goes to HPC and when it goes to plan and how that process works. One thing that is not confusing, at least to me, is that you all do have a responsibility to send something to HPC that they can work with. The same way you have a responsibility to the town to listen to what we're saying. And I have to say, just in listening tonight, the rooftop discussion is nothing short of insulting. What the residents went through on Westminster when we were presented a very similar project to this one with Rooftop, and how we had to fight to be heard and listened and respected, only to sit here tonight and go, I don't know, I never talked about rooftops. It's just something people like. You know what? It's a lot more than that. And I would suggest that if anyone has any questions on that, you can certainly go online and go on YouTube and watch the videos of our conversations in HPC. Thank you, and thank you for all of the time that you're putting toward Lake Forest.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Curry, if you unmute yourself and turn down your volume, you are with the commission.
Thank you, commissioners, and thank you, Chairman Dixon, for your service to our community. I am Todd Curry. I live at 360 East Westminster, which is about 1,500 feet away from the development as the crow flies. I'm a proud founding member of Block the Box, which is a movement in this town that grows every week. It started with our resistance to the boxification of our historic district on our street, but we are a principal group that are passionate about protecting the rich design and historical significance of our town against projects that would threaten our very character. Lake Forest is not Port Clinton North, and we are not Wrigleyville North. So we oppose this request for a special use permit on a number of reasons, and you'll hear from many of our members expressing their particular points tonight. Mine are as follows. The rooftop decks are an abomination introduced to our downtown area by these developers with their McKinley development. I believe they were simply able to push something through that was out of character but value increasing in a development that the city wanted, and that frankly, Kathy was complicit in this. She offers her opinion that where Lake Forest has no ordinance, we should simply refer to National Building Code, which is about adherence to construction standards and not community standards. This is not a city that will ever be governed by replacing our norms with those of other cities, nor certainly by looking to their construction standards. I would ask all of you to look at page 13 in the packet, the visual rooftop photo of this district. Please note that in this preservation business area, there are no residential rooftop decks. Where there is no other property with residential rooftop decks in the zone, there is a de facto variance of this design from the norms in that zone. This is therefore not consistent with the zoning of that area. In terms of sort of lived experiences, if you will, Kathy is not correct that there have been no complaints about noise from the rooftop decks on McKinley. One of my own neighbors has complained to police and testified about this in prior meetings. Her testimony is available to you. It might seem easy to pass this issue through to HPC, but that, in my opinion, is not acceptable. I would say, with experience in watching a development proposal work through our commissions and processes, I would caution you strongly against kicking any can down the road. Any petitioner will want you to, and I've never seen Kathy do anything to push things along, but you can't do it. Fight the fight in front of you.
Mr. Curry, I'd ask you to,
extract concessions where you need to, but please make things explicit. Lastly, this is an area of high traffic and historical significance, and I think anyone seeking development in this area, per Mrs. Terosian's testimony, should lead a plan and lead a proposal by engaging the community on a design, listening to them and responding to their needs. I think the recent development of the fields behind at the rec center really set a high standard for this. It's utterly missing in this proposal, and I think that that's both disappointing and telling. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Curry.
Mr. Miller, you should be able to speak. If you unmute yourself.
The quick brown fox jumped over the lazy dog. Can you hear me?
We can.
Good. Thank you so much. Just a few points. The one having to do with the traffic situation. The study did not pay attention to the very unusual intersection just to the east of where their drawings stopped. And that is a very high ambiguity space right there. It was this noon when I passed through it. And when there were two dump trucks there and people weren't sure what was happening, it often is a problem. It slows up traffic. I see the logic after today trying to go north on Bank Lane and couldn't break into that line of traffic, that you don't really want to put more onto Deer Path. But we want to keep this open, this traffic open as much as we can. And I think we could underestimate, without taking that into consideration, that difficult, even dangerous intersection, the impact that this will have on it by having additional space there. There are a number of other issues, but I will only talk about the disconnect in town between single-family houses that have very strict building bulk ordinances. The Historic Preservation Commission dealt with one of these on Sheridan Road at its last meeting in great detail, where there's a great deal of concern about too much space, how many garage doors you can have and things like that. And then when we get into the central business district, apparently the last plan that was done, which we're saying was under Mayor Kerr, worried about people not coming into downtown. That was probably in the beginning days of Amazon and everything. They wanted to have more residents there. I now live at 1100 Pembridge Drive, just at Lake Forest Place, just north of Lake Forest Hospital. I'm going downtown all the time, trying to get to places where I can spend money and go to the restaurants and things like that. I think we're overemphasizing how much we need to have more residential space, especially in a key area like that. I think we do need a comprehensive plan to address appropriate places, not quite this densely overbuilt already. There are three corners, there actually are four corners, considering this one, that have Stanley Anderson historic buildings from the 1920s. As they said on Sesame Street, which of these things is not like the others? The question of height came up. I think that this height question should be definitely in the purview of the Historic Preservation Commission. That height the height that's being proposed for this building would make it the dominant building on the street, not the famous bank building, the Northern Trust building from 1930, not the Stanley Anderson buildings that repeat the Market Square theme. And also connected to this, I haven't seen any effort to think about how they might incorporate some of the existing building that's actually in the historic district. Could the north half of that building be incorporated into something that would still make a good plan, but would preserve some of the historic visual character and keep Stanley Anderson on all four corners? The questions we have of just the alternatives are certainly one to think of, and I think we have to be careful about thinking about how we're going to proceed to make this go back and forth from the historic people to this. It's a big question about the demolition, and it also is precedent setting. Supposing somebody wants to tear down the bank building, can they just go to the Plan Commission, make that proposal, and that will change the picture? So I think there's many reasons to look carefully at the process, not to hamstring the Historic Preservation Commission as this moves to them by pre-approving heights or things like that that make it harder for them to say that they would like to have preserved some of the building or to keep the height at a level that would be historically connected. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
I do have a caller for you. Please go ahead. You're on with the commission. Hello? I'm going to give you a raised hand instead while I work on this. Ms. Moore, you should be able to speak.
Okay, this is actually Chris Moore. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can. Maybe a little louder.
Okay, I'll get closer to, I'll turn the input volume up as well. So I just want to make sure I understand the situation here. We've got a developer that, as I understand it, is currently suing the city, suing the HPC, suing individual members of the HPC, and suing.
Mr. Moore, I'm going to cut you off. If you have a comment specifically in regards to this particular petition that's before us this evening, that's fine. If you'd like to proceed on that topic, that would be great.
Yeah, I do. Why would he even give this developer the respect of even considering this, considering the fact that we've got this other stuff going on?
Mr. Moore, we have a petition before us. We're not here to have a dissertation or discussion on anything other than the petition that's before us here this evening.
Mr. Moore, you can proceed with your comments if.
Well, apparently I can't. I've been told to be quiet, so be it.
Mr. Moore, we're focusing on the petition that's before us here on 241 Deer Path.
Yeah, and so am I.
Mr. Chairman, I can respond. We certainly did discuss this with the city attorney, and the city is obligated. The property owner, First Midwest Bank, has the right to move a petition forward for public hearing and review. We don't have the ability to hold up a petition. I don't know if that's helpful at all, but I can offer that. Mr. Moore, do you have further comments?
No, I don't.
Okay, thank you. Hi, are you there? Okay, hold on just a moment. Please go ahead. You're on with the commission.
Good evening. It's been an interesting hour listening to all the comments and what's going on with this new project. And I guess my observation is I can see where the developers will benefit, and I can see where a very, very small number of residents would benefit from the structure. However, I can't really get my arms around where the citizens will benefit from this behemoth. It just, this isn't the illustration I have seen online in the packet. This is nothing more than a big brick building, big box that doesn't fit the landscape. And I'm a little surprised that it's gotten this far, and a lot of breaching of standards that you claim you uphold. And the one thing that stands out to me is none of you have to live by this. And this is one thing that always bothers me about development, is it's easy to try and put something somewhere, but by and large, none of you have to live by it. And so I would hope that this does not go through in any capacity at this stage, and there's a lot more discussion, because this is a vital location in our downtown. And there have been earlier callers that are trying to uphold our standards and our charm, which this building does not represent. So that's all I'd like to say. Thank you.
Thank you. And I will note that I do see other callers. Please continue to call as we move through these calls. Thank you.
Hey, Kathy,
Yes.
the last caller didn't identify themselves. It'd just be great if they would do that, so we know who we're hearing from.
Good point. I apologize. I will remind them to do that. Ms. White, you have a raised hand and you are now cleared to speak with the commission.
Yes, hello, thank you. I know this is a long night for everybody, so I appreciate the chance to have something to say.
I'm going to put you on hold.
Hello?
Thank you. And
Go ahead. Ms. White.
Hello?
Ms. White?
Yes?
Yes,
Go
you're
ahead.
on with
Hi.
the commission.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Very honestly, what I have to say has two different points. One is the logic of even having such a large building off of Deer Path and feeding traffic down Bank Lane. I heard all kinds of talk about Deer Path, but I really didn't hear very much about where that traffic is going to go to. It's going to feed right into the Deer Path Inn and towards a school. That doesn't make very much sense to me. And I think that we're kind of losing our way right now between our historical preservation rules being followed and just basic courtesies in this town. It doesn't seem to make much sense to me. I did write an email earlier, and I would like to quote a little bit from that if you don't mind. Because having grown up in an earlier Frederick Law Olmsted community before Lake Forest, Riverside, I can honestly tell that the Planning Commission and the City Council, that the character and utility of our downtown, it's incomparable. You do realize that we've had a movie filmed in Lake Forest once where it was filling in for the East Coast, because you don't have that kind of development in the East Coast. You don't have a beautiful downtown like that elsewhere. I'm sure many people would agree that we have something that is completely unique and worth saving. And that's something that I feel I have from my childhood. In thinking of that childhood, I just also can't help but go to my husband's. He grew up on Ridge Road. He was across the street from the house where the Kings lived, Minerva King. This is a young woman who was the model for F. Scott Fitzgerald's Daisy, as we understand it. And very honestly, as a former literature teacher and a psychology professor, I encounter people all the time who light up when they realize, when I tell them about how he used to go fishing in a fishing pond on the property. It had a pier, and that pier actually had a light. Daisy's light existed. What I don't think anybody is stopping to realize is this town is legendary. It's the stuff of romance novels. What we're doing right now with some of these variances is moving away from that. I don't think anybody's going to write about a red brick box. And we need to protect that legacy. So anyway, I still have that in an email, and you may just scan it at this point. That was just a summary. But I think we need to keep our focus on what the character and what the utility for our people going to the Deer Path Inn, children going to school and being picked up right where those streets are being fed into. We need to stop and look at those things. Those are much more important than anything else that we're talking about, I think. So I'll leave you with that. Everyone needs to have a turn, but thank you for giving me some time.
Thank you.
Ms. Downey, you there? Okay, hold on. You're going to be on with the commission. Please give your name and address. Ms. Downey, are you there?
I am.
Okay. Go ahead. You're on with the commission.
Hi, gentlemen. This is Sally Downey. I'm at 475 East Westminster. Thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. A project this large in scope in our central business district and historic district deserves more time and thought. While this may be the third time in front of the Plan Commission, the last meeting was attended by only 3 commissioners, 1 brand new, and no one in the audience. The first 2 meetings were only show and tell, not for voting. But here we are again, once again, with the same 2 developers designing an out-of-scale modern condominium that is no way compatible with the streetscape nor the neighboring historic buildings. It feels like Groundhog Day, since many of us have been fighting this industrial design for over 2 years. Most people saw it as a Westminster issue. Now the larger community is recognizing it as a degradation of our city's architectural integrity. No one complained about the 2 condos on McKinley because they were not in the historic district, but the Westminster parcel was, as is a petition before you tonight. Tonight is more than just asking for a zoning variance and a special use permit. Tonight is the first step in getting this 1927 Stanley Anderson building torn down. The developers are making no attempts at even pretending that they researched other options. Where are the drawings for an adaptive reuse? Why is this developer's solution always a massive brick condo with balconies and rooftop terraces? This condo is a staggering 52,000 square feet. Tonight they're asking for a special use permit and a zoning change for a piece of land they don't even own. This is the identical playbook with how they tried to get the Westminster condo built. The City Council overturned the Plan Commission and allowed the zoning and special use change. But the HPC rejected the design. The cart was before the horse. So now what? The process was backwards then, and it is backwards now. Why is the Plan Commission even hearing this and contemplating changing zoning and giving them a special use permit when they don't even own the land and there is no guarantee their design will go through? We all know the plot to this story. Fight, appeal, sue. The city's own strategic 2018-2022 plan states in the Housing Diversity and Residential Development section 1, inventory existing housing types and lot sizes for the purpose of identifying gaps in available products or alternatively an overabundance of a particular housing product or lot sizes. In the staff report tonight, staff says we lost so many apartments when the Market Square area was renovated, which holds absolutely no weight. That comment does not take into account the decades-long building that has been happening in our town, including many more apartments and condos within walking distance to town. Number 2, review and update the comprehensive plan as it relates to housing to provide a framework for future development decisions. Has the city done this, and can the residents see it, please? Number 3, continue the tradition of thoughtful long-term planning. Preserve the character of the community and quality of life. Look at this building. It relates to nothing in the central business district or the character of the surrounding architecture. Number 4, avoid following trends of the day. Consider the impact of decisions carefully weighing short-term benefits and long-term impacts. This building is the new trend. I drive through Highwood and Highland Park and it is the new look, but ours have the Wrigleyville rooftops. Number 5, once the Laurel and Western Avenues and the McKinley Road redevelopment projects are completed, take time to evaluate the absorption of the new rental and for sale products and the alignment or lack thereof of the unit sizes and price points with the market interests. Care should be taken to not overbuild. Number 6, encourage adaptive reuse of historically significant single-family residences, outbuildings, and estate properties. Take time to evaluate and encourage adaptive reuse. Has this ever even been an option with this 1927 Stanley Anderson building? My last point is this: the parking study is laughable. July 27, 2021 does not reflect peak times since there's no school, a lot of people are on vacation, the college is out. Plus COVID and shortened office hours have impacted traffic flow. Drive on Geopath and on McKinley, a drop-off and pickup times for DPM and the high school, and the roads are backed up for blocks and blocks.
It is a nightmare, and adding to this many new cars only exacerbates it. The Plan Commission should demand a factual traffic study when school is actually in session. I ask the Plan Commission to vote no on this tonight. I ask that the process begin with the Historic Preservation Commission to see if the design will even pass the 17 design standards before we grant a special use permit and a zoning change to developers who still do not own the property. We have made that mistake before, and we learned nothing. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Ms. Athensen, you are able to speak now?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Hello.
Yes.
Good evening, Chairman Dixon and Commissioners. I am Susan Athensen, the President of the Lake Forest Preservation Foundation, and I am representing the foundation tonight. I live at 901 Summit Avenue.
Okay. Sorry.
So for nearly 50 years, the Lake Forest Preservation's mission has been to preserve the historic visual character of Lake Forest. After a thorough review, the foundation believes the proposed condominium building at 241 Deer Path does not meet the findings for a special use permit or the criteria for a CBD plan development. We submitted our opinion to the commission on Monday. It was rather lengthy, so I will try and summarize it to fit into my 5-minute time slot. The foundation believes the petitioner's request for a special use permit is premature because the Plan Commission cannot complete the analysis required by the comprehensive plan and the city code unless or until the Historic Preservation Commission reviews and approves the demolition of the CT gun building and the design and height of any new structure. The special use permit request may be mooted if the HPC rejects the plan of the demolition or the design or height of any new structure. This is why City Code 159.114 contemplates that any proposed building design receive an initial conceptual approval from the HPC. The HPC conceptual review is critical to this process because, as reflected in the staff report, the following principle must guide the Plan Commission's decision. Quote, Market Square serves as a city center that establishes a strong positive identity and a sense of place for the city. All new development in the CBD should be compatible with its historic character. Quote, the B4 Preservation Business District is designed to preserve the unique attributes of the historic retail, residential, and office core of the city, unquote. Quote, these regulations are designed to preserve the community's quality of life and the village character of the core area. In particular, these regulations are intended to preserve the historic buildings and the variety of building sizes, heights, and architectural styles and detailing. Quote, the purpose of the CBD plan development section of the code, section 159.114, is to allow some flexibility with respect to the provisions of the business zoning districts in order to achieve the goals of 1, maintaining a vital business district, 2, preserving the historic character and significance of the district, and 3, ensuring that development is consistent with available infrastructure. So how can the Plan Commission issue a special use permit consistent with these principles without having even conceptual design approval from the HPC? In addition to being premature for the Plan Commission to consider this petition, the foundation believes this project does not meet the following findings of fact to allow a special use permit. City Code 159.045 E2C states, quote, the special use will not negatively affect the overall character of the area or detract from the primary retail nature of the district, unquote. The foundation believes this proposed development style, height, and mass are incompatible and out of character with the historic Shaw and Anderson designed English village style of Market Square, the CBD, and Deer Path. The proposed building style, mass, and height will detract and dominate the historic buildings on this block and reduce their significance. 2, City Code 159.045 E2D for special use states, quote, the exterior architectural appearance and functional plan of any proposed structure will not be incompatible with either the exterior structural architectural appearance functional plan of structures already constructed or in the course of construction in the immediate neighborhood, or the character of the applicable district. We believe the demolition of the CT Gun building, a recognized contributing historic structure to the CBD and Market Square Historic District, would have a negative impact on the character of the iconic Deer Path streetscape and the surrounding CBD. The proposed condo building will dominate the existing historic buildings with its incompatible style, height, and mass. The foundation also believes this project does not meet the following criteria to allow a CBD plan development. The city code for CBD plan development states the goals of 2, preserving the historic character and significance of the district, and 3, ensuring that development is consistent with available infrastructure. These goals are accomplished by requiring the following criteria of the city code. Quote, the building and landscape concepts have received conceptual approval from the HPC or BRB, unquote. This development assumes the demolition of the historic CT Gun building. It is imperative that this project first receive a review by the HPC before it goes any further. The developer should not assume demolition would be approved. This is a significant historic building and a contributing structure to the CBD and should be adaptively reused. The Plan Commission should remand this petition to the HPC for review first and not waste time reviewing a proposal that might have to be adjusted. Another criteria of the CBD plan development states, quote, at least 25% of the site is retained as open space, unquote. We believe the proposed development needs to maintain greater setbacks on all sides to allow for more light and air, pedestrian-friendly spaces, and significant landscaping. The Shaw and Anderson tradition for the English village style is to create park-like open spaces around buildings. This development proposes a lot line to lot line building, which is not in character with the CBD buildings. So for these reasons and those set forth in our written opinion, the Preservation Foundation recommends that the Plan Commission deny the special use permit or continue the hearing on this petition until after the HPC provides at least conceptual approval of any plan. Only then would the Plan Commission be able to know whether and to what extent any special permit is required or appropriate. So thank you for your consideration.
Thank you, Mrs. Athensen.
Mr. Chairman, we have a caller, Ms. Lynn, you're on with the commission.
Okay.
Please,
thank you.
Please
Thank you so much.
turn
Yes,
down your
I will.
volume.
Turn off. Yes, okay.
Thank you.
Hi. Good evening. My name's Regina Lynn. I live at 338 East Westminster, across from the proposed box. I want to call in for 2 reasons tonight. First reason is just to make sure that I still have the privilege as a citizen of the United States to speak under my First Amendment rights and not be sued by this developer and architect. Secondly, I wanted to say that everyone else has made all the points that I think are very important to be made. I'm not going to go there again. I do want to say, with all due respect to the Plan Commission, that I was struck by the fact that everyone, minus Mr. Moorhead, I think his name is, I can't see because it's blurred on the screen, was interested in parking. Parking is not the problem here. We need vision from the Plan Commission. That's your job, isn't it? Not to, parking should be a consideration, but it should be broader than that. It should have to do with history and with what's appropriate to the area. It's got to be more than just where people are going to park their cars. That's all I have to say. Thank you for listening.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Mr. Bergman, I see your hand up, and I believe you had some slides, so I'm going to promote you to the panelist, and you should, if you accept that, you will be able to share your screen. Mr. Bergman? You are on with the commission.
Okay.
Mr. Bergman, Please turn down the sound on your computer or television.
Is that better?
Yes.
Okay.
No. We're still getting feedback.
I don't know what is causing the feedback. I don't have anything on in my end.
Does he have his telephone and his computer on? Do you have, Paul, do you have your telephone and computer on?
No, I don't.
Oh, what? Why don't you give it a try and see if
Okay. So.
Or turn the,
What's the sound?
yeah, Paul, maybe try turning the volume down on your computer or on your device.
Does that work any better?
Yeah, that's a lot better.
Is that a lot better? Okay. I don't think I can hear you at all. So if somebody wants to break in, you're going to have to wave at me or something like that. So to begin with, I am Paul Bergman. I actually live in Lake Bluff. My father was the sole post-World War II partner of Stanley Anderson. And I have just written the book on the Stanley Anderson works. The Architecture of Stanley D. Anderson with James Tickner and William Bergman, published last year. And so I own all of the memorabilia and books and records of the firm. Now, I am not going to talk about the gun building this evening, but I do want to talk to you about the English village that exists in Lake Forest and what this means. And I'm going to do this because as I read your zoning code that's part of the package, and Commissioner Moorhead and Susan Athensen also has mentioned this, but the regulations are designed to preserve the community quality of life and the village character. The word village is in quotes, the village character of the core area. In particular, these regulations are intended to preserve the historic buildings. So that's part of your charge, is to preserve the historic buildings and also to maintain the variety of building sizes, heights, architectural stylings, and detailing. So I'm not going to talk about the gun building, but I do want to state that Lake Foresters are blessed to live in a community of extraordinary architectural beauty. However, all too often, we get numb and indifferent to this, and we stop looking at it. And so the CT gun building is part of an architectural design concept where Howard Van Doren Shaw and later Stanley Anderson were building on earlier architectural precedents for the Lake Forest Business District as an English village as it would look in the 1800s. This would include a collection of Tudor and Georgian buildings mixed along busy boulevards such as Deer Path and narrow side streets such as Bank Lane. And this Chicago Tribune headline from 1926 describes the Deer Path Theater building, which is built a year after the gun building, and it says it all about some Yorkshire village being built in Lake Forest. And so here's a map. This is out of my book, and this is a map of all of the Stanley Anderson buildings that were built in Market Square and in the central business district of Lake Forest. And the gun building is outlined in the large blue box in the center of the map. And this map shows most of the buildings that Anderson worked on in this period, but not all of them. So it's important to know that there's a tremendous amount of Stanley Anderson work in the central business district. Oops, sorry, I'm going the wrong way here. So the first building that we see when we get into the English village is the City Hall. And this is a part of the first of the English village buildings were municipal buildings. And we would be sitting in City Hall tonight, but for COVID. City Hall was designed in 1899 by Frost and Granger, and it was described as being designed in the English style when it was dedicated in 1899. Oh, damn. The next building we have is Lake Forest Train Station in 1900, also by Frost and Granger. The Lake Forest Train Station, with its exposed half timbering work, is clearly part of the English Tudor tradition. Then we get to the Griffith Building. John Griffith was a prominent realtor in Lake Forest at the turn of the last century. In 1903, Griffith built this building on Western Avenue. And in the published history of Griffith and his firm, this building is attributed to Frost and Granger. The text reads, "It later bordered Market Square to the north and helped set the precedent for the square style." Griffith was one of the developers of Market Square and also worked closely with Anderson on many other projects. And most of you know that Griffith, Grant, and Lackey is still in business today. The next building we get to is the Anderson Building. Most of us know this as the Walgreens Building. Here it is in a 1940s postcard. This is designed by James Gamble Rogers in 1903. This is a Georgian building that adds to the character of the English village. James Gamble Rogers designed a huge portion of Northwestern University campus and a very large portion of Princeton University in New Jersey. This building housed the family dry goods store and the surveying company, which still exists today. And Stanley would have been 8 or 9 years old when this building was constructed. The next building you will all recognize. This is the North Tower and building of Market Square. It's by Howard Van Doren Shaw, completed in 1916. Market Square is essentially the second wave of envisioning the English village. The square follows by 10, almost 20 years after City Hall, the train station, the Anderson and Griffith commercial buildings. And then we get to the Stanley Anderson buildings. This is called the East of Theater Building, and it's the first of the Anderson buildings. It was actually designed in 1924 when Anderson was still employed at Howard Van Doren Shaw's office and was a moonlighting project for his family's estate. The next building on Bank Lane is part of the English Village. This is part of the spine that forms the connection between Market Square and the soon-to-be-built Deer Path Inn. Anderson was planning the Deer Path Theater building, building the gun building, and also talking to the Deer Path Inn owners about building a new Deer Path Inn at the time the Eastwood building was completed. Further over on Western Avenue is the Fry and Udell building. Fry was a local electrical contractor. Udell was a printer. Udell printed the Lake Forester in this building for many years. The next building we get to in 1927 is the Deer Path Theater building. It was Anderson conceptualized the building as early as 1924. And they held the opening of the theater until 1928 so they could install the sound system for the new talkie movies that had just been developed. The next building is the First National Bank building, now the Northern Trust. Anderson designed this in 1930. This is the first of his monumental country Georgian buildings. This building is across Bank Lane from the gun building and across Deer Path from the theater. This nexus of buildings forms the central core of the English village. This group of buildings is the visual connector between the Deer Path Inn to the south and Market Square to the north. This intersection is ground zero of the English village. The next building we get is the Police Fire Building in 1929. The left or north side of the building was designed by Frost and Granger around 1901 as the city tool shed. It housed snow plows and other tools for street repair. This side of the building predates Market Square, which is directly behind it. In 1929, Anderson added the right or south addition to create the police fire station. And the building started as an English village building and was altered with Tudor styling to add to its English village appeal.
Hey, Paul, can I stop you or ask you to maybe wrap it up a little? As much as it is fascinating, and your full report was in our packet, and I think many of us found it very historically accurate. There are a number of people that we want to continue to get to, but you've gone over here 2 or 3 minutes past the allotted time. If you could wrap it up, we would greatly appreciate it.
All right, let me just click through all of these. This is where the 580 building is today, and this was proposed in 1929. This is the 580 building. When Anderson and Bergman got together, Bergman designed this building. They purposefully set the building back away from the sidewalk, and Bergman tucked the storefronts under the overhang of the building to build an arcade so that the visual connection between Market Square and the Deer Path Inn would be maintained. The grass, trees, and overhangs are all part of maintaining the plan, if not the architecture, for the design. Now, the English Village continues to grow. Here's the Lake Forest Bank and Trust building over on Westminster. This is clearly an homage to Market Square. But what's even more interesting is this wonderful little English cottage they did as a drive-through. The English Village is still a very viable concept and flows through even to today's work. And so you all are charged with preserving the village character of the town and preserving the historic buildings. So in closing, Chairman Dixon, thank you, but have I given you enough architectural styling and details so that you understand the village, the English Village character of Lake Forest?
I think your presentation has been very thorough, Paul, and thank you so much for the presentation, not only in the form you gave here this evening, but also in the packet that the full Plan Commission received in preparation for tonight's meeting. So thank you very much.
Mr. Chairman, I have another caller.
Please.
Ellie, you are on with the commission. Go ahead, please. Go ahead, please.
Hi. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you turn down the volume on your other devices, please?
Is that better?
That's much better. Just
okay.
Offer your name and address for the commission, please. Thank you.
Perfect. Hi. My name is Ellie Natalie, and I reside at 150 Atteridge Lane in Lake Forest. I've lived in Lake Bluff and Lake Forest most of my life and chose to raise my children in this community. The downtown city center is no doubt a treasure and should be treated and respected as such. I must admit, I am nervous to use my voice tonight as I'm aware of the ramifications involving residents that speak their truths. I believe this is too big of a conversation to stay silent, regardless of the possible backlash. In fact, I believe there should be far more community awareness and outreach regarding a project that could potentially change the entire landscape of our beloved downtown. The community deserves to know well in advance of these proposed projects in order to get a true good sense of public reaction. Most residents in Lake Forest aren't even aware this is a topic of conversation. I wonder how long the city has known about this project. I'm in a bit of a state of shock that the city of Lake Forest would put any time or energy towards this proposed project, and the reasons are endless. The demolition of a historic Stanley Anderson building designed to specifically complement the Van Doren Shaw Market Square seems tragic, unnecessary, wasteful, and disrespectful. The proposed building is too big, it's massive, towering over the adjacent buildings and housing rooftop party decks. It's inappropriate. It's not even about the soulless design of the box-like structure. It's missing all the integrity. I drove past the CT Gun building today, as I do multiple times a day, every day, and I took note of the leaded glass windows, the slate roof, the copper detailing. Where are the complementary architectural details and charm on this proposed building? How can we convince ourselves that this belongs here? Is that what we want to be greeted with first as we enter the heart of our city on Deer Path Road? Allowing this project to continue would be the greatest loss to our community, not solely because of this building, but the precedent it would set for future properties. There seems to be a huge disregard for historic integrity. What building would come down next? I understand the same developers recently lost rights to build another box just down the road in a historic district. I also understand that developers have sued the city of Lake Forest for essentially not getting their way, despite going through our preservation and protection process, repeatedly actually, before getting turned down. Again, I'm surprised that the city is even engaging in a conversation far more ridiculous than the first, while in an active lawsuit with the petitioner. We live in a throwaway society. When something breaks or becomes tired, we buy a new one. Imagine if this became our norm within our city and homes. We wouldn't have a soul anymore. I will always love our city of Lake Forest, and I trust that you will help us protect our treasures. With gratitude. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I do have another caller. Oh, are you still there? Thank you for being so patient. You are now on with the commission. Please state your name and your address. Go ahead, Mrs. Carangello.
First name is Teresa. I live on 1301 Northwestern Avenue.
And you might speak up a little just to make sure the commission can hear you.
Okay. My family has been here for over 50 years. It is disturbing to see such a plan like this. Every person that I've spoken to within the last 48 hours has stated a disgrace of a building that is being proposed in the city of Lake Forest. Have you guys received any benefit from a resident of this new plan? Because we haven't seen one person say, yes, let's do this. City of Lake Forest, what does it mean for our residents and for non-residents? Our beach, our trees, and our market square, our historical buildings. You guys will be removing an Anderson building. Once you tear something down, you can't rebuild it. That gentleman, that developer said that Lake Forest is changing. Lake Forest never changes. We will always remain the same. No matter if we're 14 years old, 40 years old, or 100 years old, we will always be an historical city. Our buildings do not change. People all over come and visit Lake Forest. He could not answer your question, if you recall tonight, why that plan that you guys see, what is historical about it? Nothing is historical about it. It is a box. It is a flat roof box. Why is it flat? Because they want to put fire in a balcony that's flat on top so they could throw parties, just like they did on McKinley and Wesley, when the fire chief of Lake Forest did not even know until a drone was passed. That is sickening. And why are Lake Forest residents always the last to find out what is going on in our city 48 hours before a meeting? This is your third meeting in regards to this. Why is it when something that is urgent and needs to be voted on that the residents need to be
heard about, and we have to scramble to voice our opinions. Why is that? You guys did it for the condos, and now you're doing it again. It's disgusting. I have lived here my entire life. What's the next building? I hope you guys reconsider your options tonight, because the city of Lake Forest does not want this. The residents do not want this. It is up to you five people to make the right decision. It is up to our mayor to step up and do his job and protect our historical Market Square. Thank you for the time.
Thank you.
Kathy, as you're trying to put on another caller, or somebody
Yes.
else might raise their hand, let me just give the number out again.
Okay.
847-810-3643. That number again, 847-810-3643.
Mr. Chairman, we do have some raised hands, and I'm going to promote Ms. Lopat. Please introduce yourself, and you have 5 minutes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good evening, Plan Commission. My name is Rami Lopat. By the way, before my time begins, I just want to make clear that by state law, no one is required to give an address. Anyone from anywhere can call and voice an opinion. Anyway, there's been a lot of great remarks tonight, and it really me a lot of reassurance and love for the people in this town, because they love it so much. That said, I don't envy you your role as reviewers of this petition to build a 52,000 square foot condominium on a half an acre of land at Deer Path and Bank Lane in the heart of our historic town. A more visible and sensitive location would be hard to find. Earlier today, I sent you my analysis of this petition and this process. My report offers you many specifics. Time is short, so let me get down to my main points. First, the good news. The idea of a condo with first floor commercial near Market Square could be welcome. It can theoretically bring more vitality to our downtown. That said, however, this petition for a special use as a central business district B4 planned development seeks too much building on too small a property. That is obvious from the renderings included in the packet. The proposed building is overwhelming. Rezoning for this project cannot be approved at this scale, this mass, and this height. Your job is to figure out how to say no to its enormity and its negative impacts. You have some tools. You have the comprehensive plan, you have the ability to consider a lower floor to area ratio, and you have the ability to set many conditions, all of which I hope you use to the utmost. In my opinion, the petitioner has failed to prove that the Plan Commission should, at this time, approve a special use CBD plan development. The proposal does not further the goals of the comprehensive plan, as explained in my written submittal. The scale and design of the petitioner's proposal also does not meet statutory requirements for open space, parking, stormwater management, historic preservation, the ambience of Bank Lane from Deer Path to Vine, and sustainability. By the way, I was pleasantly surprised to find that the city code includes required features for projects built on Bank Lane, such as gardens and courtyards, none of which are in this proposal, but should be. My written testimony includes some details for your use, such as there's no amplification or loudspeakers allowed in the B4 district. The 5-foot setback on the north facade is meaningless with a building of this height, and the shadow will not allow any vegetation to survive. Of course, you know that most Deer Path buildings have no setbacks from the sidewalk. The Plan Commission appears to have the authority to limit the density of this proposed building, and it should, which will decrease the project's 21 space parking shortfall. made all the worse by losing 19 more spaces at the same spot on Deer Path through the city's own Deer Path Streetscape project. The Commission can also delineate reasons to the City Council regarding why this proposal should be redesigned immediately by the petitioner to make it much smaller and far more historically compatible. The Plan Commission, together with the City Council, should keep the record open while the petitioner amends the design so that it can be sent to the HPC. It is to the petitioner's benefit to do so. A better design will help the HPC render a cleaner and quicker determination on whether a smaller, more compatibly designed building is a worthy replacement to the historic gun building. But the petitioner should be cautioned that they must demonstrate to the HPC why the gun building is not worthy of preservation, a high bar as it should be. Can anyone imagine giving approval to demolishing the decrepit Deer Path Inn instead of rehabbing it? No. It cannot be stressed enough that review of a highly amended design should be referred to the HPC for conceptual review before any further action is taken by the Plan Commission on creating a special use. It would be helpful if the Plan Commission could tell the public what issues will be taken up at each of your subsequent meetings, or maybe tell us that every meeting will be generalized. Please be efficient with our time and your own. Let me say that Mr. Whitmer and Mr. Altunian are local residents, contractors, and architects. They should know better than presenting our community with an oversized box with no historic features, deficient parking, no open space, no sustainability, and no ambience. All the rest of us, especially those of us who live in historic districts, received the memo dated 1857 in which our forefathers directed us to design a damn legacy when we build in this special place called Lake Forest. The petitioners should instead be presenting a win-win project so that their fellow residents are all happy to support, which we are all happy to support, but regrettably they did not. So please use your magic and your powers, Plan Commission, to help preserve our historic scale, our visual character, and our astonishing architecture. Let it only be replaced when something far more exceptional is proposed. Thank you for your diligence and your hard work. Good night.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I do have a few more hands raised.
Okay.
I see a hand raised for Laura. You are with the commission, if you'd like to introduce yourself and speak.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
My name is Laura Luce, and I live at 111 Ridge Lane in Lake Forest. I'm a neighbor, and my property abuts the city parking lot at Deer Path and Oakwood, a block from the corner under discussion tonight. I'm a nearly lifelong resident of Lake Forest, and this feels like deja vu all over again. The same developers want to permanently alter the historic districts of Lake Forest with their condominium developments. We are presented with a proposal not only to raise an historic 1927 Stanley D. Anderson building at the gateway to the Central Business District, but replace it with 50,000 square foot industrial red brick, 4-story behemoth, complete once again with sunbrellas and party decks, that is completely out of context and character with the planned, charming English village feel of our town. Is this what we want to see when driving east on Deer Path, entering our beautiful, historic, nationally renowned town, passing the new Craig Bergman designed entrance corridor and welcoming Veterans Park? Why would we want to put such a large condominium building on our most historic, prominent street in Lake Forest? We need to preserve the historic visual character of Lake Forest as envisioned by Frost and Granger, Howard Van Doren Shaw, and later Anderson, or we are going to become another Vernon Hills or Highwood. People choose to move here because of our town's identity, sense of place, significance, and yes, what it looks like and what it represents. Adaptation and evolution with respect for history. 160 years of history. The developers are being inflexible again. There is no reason why this 1927 building wouldn't be a candidate for adaptive reuse. This is about greed. If we don't acquiesce, will they sue again? They are bullies in the schoolyard, expecting to win through muscle, perseverance, and threats. The developer and architect seem to have some sort of weird pathological need to alter the character of our town. In height, mass, and style, they present the same inappropriate, out of context buildings time after time. Stop, just stop. Work to adaptively reuse this historic building and don't permit another demolition from which there is no going back. Changes appear incrementally, and then there is precedent. What's next? Raise the Northern Trust building, the theater, Marshall Fields. This is not hyperbole. It's how it starts and ends. Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, I do see another hand raised. Give me just a moment. Mr. Downey, you are on with the commission.
Good evening. Thank you very much. Tim Downey, 475 East Westminster. I am 63 years old and I do development. And I will tell you, I have never been involved in a discussion like this with such intelligent, passionate, compassionate, and compelling arguments regarding this project. I hope everyone on the commission is equally impressed with the quality of comments that's been presented here tonight. It's actually, I've been moved by what a wonderful job everyone has done. I can't add very much to this because I agree with all this. It should go through HPC. That process should not be subverted. It's been a long time since he spoke, but Mr. Whitner was asked why they wanted to bypass HPC at this point, and he brought up a couple of reasons. You know, one, he wanted to get feedback on, I think, the drive-through and some other things. Well, I think your commission can perhaps give him that guidance, not vote on this, but perhaps you can say, you know, subject to going through HPC and the regular process, we can accept the drive-through or not accept the drive-through. You can give him some of the assurance that he was hoping for before they go further without approving this. So I would strongly suggest that you do that if you're allowed to do that. I think it's very clear to you and to everyone that's involved with this that this proposed building does not fit in. I don't mean to be disrespectful to anyone, but I think if we had a rendering of this building and had renderings of other buildings on Deer Path and did that classic, you know, children's game, which doesn't belong, which picture doesn't belong. I think all of my 11 grandkids would pick this building saying it doesn't belong, and my oldest grandchild is 9 years old. It's not too hard to see that this doesn't fit. And it was just recently said, this is the gateway to downtown. You don't get a do-over here. You have to get this thing right, because if you don't, it'll mess up this entrance corridor forever. So we need to take our time. We need to make sure this is done the right way. And we have a process and procedures to thoughtfully do this the right way. So please, send it back to HPC, give the developers whatever guidance you are comfortable giving them at this point, but this should not be approved at this point. And secondly, rooftops have come in and out of the discussion. This is a major issue in Lake Forest, and it shouldn't be just something that kind of willy-nilly gets approved. Oh, here's a project with another rooftop, and we have no standards or no guidelines, and they just kind of creep into our community. The rooftop use should be something that's actively discussed and debated, and with standards, if they're allowed at all, going forward in standards and where they should be allowed and how they should be used. Just having this as a byproduct of development rather than a very thoughtfully researched and evaluated development component with significant community input is just wrong. we have to get some standards in place as soon as possible with rooftop use. Because here it is between the first two McKinley buildings, Westminster, and now this one. Clearly, it's a topic that we're seeing, we have seen, and we'll see again. So we need to be proactive with this and not reactive. That's it. Again, I hope you're all as proud of our community as I am this evening with hearing everyone's comments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Kathy, are there any more callers and or raised hands?
No callers. Let's see, I scrolled through. I do see one hand that just was raised. Give me just a moment. Mr. Shuren, you are on with the commission. Please unmute yourself.
Hello, this is James Sheeran at 66 Atteridge Road, and of Bories and Sheeran Architects. I, like Tim just said, and all the people that have spoken, I'm just astounded at the quality of offerings of opinion from Lake Foresters, old and young and new. Everybody spot on. But the one thing I can say with great exclamation, I'm almost so excited I can't sit still, is what Paul Bergman just said to all of us. Stanley Anderson left us the keys to our future for free. He has all the drawings of the English Village, built and unbuilt. There are even an illustration by Jerome Cerny in our Lake Forest Historic Society. These are the keys. This is the answer to what we should be doing. How do we lay out our future? The city should be examining these drawings through some kind of commission. These are the roadmap, the building blocks, the precedents. These should be the tools, the elements that we use to guide ourselves to continue the extraordinary branding that Shaw and Anderson created for us. It's easy. I mean, I just can't believe what Paul Bergman told us. It's a wake-up call, an extraordinary gift to all of us. And it's the answer to preserving what is a nearly intact gun building. In fact, the building housing the UPS across the street is in far worse shape than should we tear it down? It's a mess. The windows are cheap and plastic and have no muntins. The downstairs windows are postmodern. I mean, I'll ramble on about that. But anyway, the gun building, there's no way to tear it down. It needs exact reuse. And thank you, Paul Bergman. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, we do have a couple more people who have now raised their hands. Ms. Carney, please unmute yourself. You're on with the commission.
Thank you, Kathy. My name is Marina Carney, Purrier. I live in Lake Bluff. I'm a realtor in Lake Forest. I would just like to say, I know Peter Whitmer is capable of better design that would be appropriate to the gateway to Lake Forest, as is the best example would be Regents Row. There is no reason why this can't be a more attractive building than he has designed presently. I do feel we have a need for a building like this with, smaller units, maybe less expensive than what has been put up on McKinley, et cetera. But I just think we could have better design. That's all.
Thank you.
I don't see any more hands raised, but give me just a moment. Ms. Fawcett, did you have your hand raised? I did just allow you to speak. Mr. Chairman, as far as I can tell, I don't see any other hands raised and we have no callers waiting.
Okay.
So I will turn it back to you.
Thank you so much. And again, hopefully everybody got the chance to call in, to speak. Again, we're doing the best job of navigating the technology here, and thank you, Ms. Cerniak, for navigating the calls and the raised hand options. I had almost just under 20 people here that I took notes on that called in and or raised their hand to voice their opinion on this project. I would like to also make a comment and thank all those that called in. That is appreciative to gather the information and comments that were offered up. I would also like to state, if anybody wants to be put on the list for the Plan Commission information for this project, please get your name, your contact information to the city. And maybe Kathy, you can speak on that topic. You look like you want to add something to that.
I did want to note that everyone who submitted written comments, we have added you to the interested parties list already, so you all don't need to recontact me. But anyone who did not submit written comments, please let me know. I'd be happy to put you on our interested parties list. Thank you for raising that, Mr. Chairman.
So just for clarification, if somebody sent in an email, if somebody called and we were able to get their name and or address, their information is logged in with you, the city, and they'll receive information going forward. Is that correct?
Yes, as long as we were provided with either an email address or a mailing address. They are
Okay.
now on our list.
Okay. And anybody else that does not meet that criteria, if they want to call or email the city, they're more than welcome to get the information as well. Let me, at this point, let me ask if there's any final questions from the commission members, either to the petitioner or the staff.
I do have two final questions.
Please, Commissioner.
At some point, maybe we can entertain a 5-minute break at some point, but I'm happy to ask the questions first or second, whichever.
Well, why don't, let's just take a look here. Why don't we just close the testimony and then take a 5-minute break, unless this goes longer. But if that, I think that'll take 5 minutes, and then we'll take a 5-minute break, if that's okay.
Sure.
Does that sound,
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, so you're including me in that testimony?
Yeah, so yeah, why don't you go, I mean, take as much time as you need, but you know, assuming you don't have a lot, then we'll take a break. I agree. It's 9:15 and we've been at it since 6:30. So we're coming up on the 3-hour mark. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay. One question for Kathy, and then one question for First Midwest, if they're still on the call. Kathy, the CBD comprehensive plan update, you and I have chatted about that. It was scheduled for 2021, I think, or maybe 2020, and it got delayed because of COVID. What's the timetable for that, roughly?
We are including it in our budget request for fiscal year 23, which starts May 1 of 2022. So we do anticipate, hopefully right after the start of the year, being able to bring large groups together for workshops, both to discuss housing as well as the Central Business District, both of those topics in tandem.
Okay.
So within the next few months, we should get going on it.
Okay. And then is First Midwest, is it Ken? Is he still on the call?
I believe he is, but let me find him. Mr. Cadlack, I'm going to move you back as a panelist. So if you would accept that invitation and unmute yourself. I know it takes a few minutes to move you over.
Great.
Mr. Kedlek, if you would unmute yourself. Mr. Kedlek, are you with us? Mr. Whitmer, I don't know if you can connect with Mr. Kedlek. Commissioner Moorhead, maybe you go ahead and ask your question and we'll see if we can.
Yeah, it was really two questions. The first was how many, if any, ATMs does First Midwest have in parking garages? And then the second, is there any noticeable uptick in crime related to those ATMs relative to ATMs that they generally have in their banking system?
Mr. Whitmer, I have brought you forward too. I don't know if you can connect with Mr. Kedlek or if you can answer that question.
I'm texting Mr. Cadillac right now. But I have that came up earlier in one of our other meetings, prior planning commission meetings, and I had talked to Ken about that. He's not aware of any ATM projects that they have in parking garages. And we did talk about I know there was an incident, I think at their First Midwest, actually their ATM they have currently there on site. And they look at these pretty extensively with their real estate group and all of their banks and are very comfortable with having the ATM in a parking structure. The other thing from the policing of it, I think that they would not approve it if they weren't comfortable with the security issues related to that.
Thank you. That's all I had.
Any other commissioners that have questions either for the petitioner or staff?
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Please.
Kathy, I'm wondering maybe if you could comment on a couple of folks mentioned the section of the code that refers to that the HPC should do a conceptual review and approval as part of the plan development criteria. I know we've kind of talked a little bit about chicken and egg. Do we go HPC first or plan commission? But this particular section keeps getting mentioned, and I thought maybe you could comment on that.
Sure. It is a criteria for the CBD plan development. So as I mentioned at the beginning, it would be appropriate after giving some input on the zoning issues to continue the matter tonight and direct it to the Historic Preservation Commission. If the commission felt differently, obviously you have the option to simply recommend denial of the petition based on the fact that if you conclude that it does not align with the zoning code. And third option would be to go ahead and take action, recommend approval. But if you do that, I would suggest that you condition that upon approval by the Historic Preservation Commission. And if that then did not happen, your recommendation would be moot. But yes, it is. And as you noted, Commissioner Pickus, it always is difficult for petitioners to know where to spend money. And it is very common for petitioners to come forward with petitions that are not fully developed to get a sense of whether they're going in the right direction. So not a perfect process, but it's our public review process that we've relied on for decades.
Very good. Thank you, Kathy. Just wanted to get that clarification. No further questions, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Commissioner Pickus. Anybody else, any other commissioners for any questions to petitioner or staff? Okay, now turning to Mr. Whitmer or Mr. Kaldek. Petitioners, would you like to take an opportunity for a 10-minute rebuttal?
Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, great. Sure. Thanks for the time, and thanks for everybody's input on the project and their thoughts. And I took as good notes I could. And I think Kathy mentioned we were very reluctant to show any elevations of our building or design of our building because we wanted to see the focus of what the Planning Commission had and what I think the positives of the comments is we understand what at least the callers are concerned about. And so, I would ask that the Planning Commission give some sort of direction on the existing zoning. So we're really not asking for as a variance. The zoning code is very clear on what the FAR is and what the requirements are to achieve that FAR. So moving forward would be very helpful for us to get some understanding from what the Planning Commission has on the FAR, because the lot is 26,000 square feet, and the way we calculate it, we are under the 2.0 with the current idea of the design. The visuals of the design, what it looks like, all that, are absolutely in review, and we will continue to work on that and bring that forward to the HPC. But I think it would be helpful for us to have some direction from the Planning Commission if they're going to support the existing zoning, or that that they really don't, and so that we would move in a different direction. So I think that we heard all the comments, and a lot of them had to do with the way or some of the perceptions of what our building looks like, and I think that that's not really what we were looking for tonight. We're really looking for, is the Planning Commission in support of the overall concept of this building, the use, and the drive-through, and the site circulation, and some input on the FAR. So with that, I'd like to turn it back over to the board. Thanks.
Thanks, Mr. Whitmer. I just have two quick questions before Kathy, maybe you can just add a final comment, and then we'll take a break. The Commissioner Moorhead had a very good question among many in regards to the Central Business District upcoming planning open meetings, and that was obviously also a question that was raised by many of our good audience members that called in. Can you just speak, Kathy, just quickly in regards to that, or state where people can get information on that, just so it's clear to the public what's going on with the Central Business District in upcoming planning in regards to that?
Sure. As Commissioner Moore noted, we were in the process of updating each chapter of the city's comprehensive plan. We had, prior to the pandemic, we had completed the Waukegan Road Settler Square Business District update and the Route 60 corridor update. We were next scheduled to look at the Central Business District and the housing chapters, and public workshops, which we'd held for the first two chapters, and pretty significant hands-on involvement by the public is really critical to comprehensive plan updates. So we did the continuing updates were delayed. We do anticipate that in 2022 we'll be moving those forward. If anyone wants to be on the interested parties list for the comprehensive plan update, again, let me know. We have already an extensive interested parties list, and We'll certainly add anyone who indicates an interest to that list and keep them informed as that starts up. But again, it's really essential that we be able to have large groups gather, hands-on workshops. With the earlier workshops, we had maps laid out and people were able to draw on them and talk with each other. So we want to be sure that we have that same level of engagement. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, no, that does, and that's helpful. And people will also be able to find information out about the comprehensive plan as it relates to this central business district on the city's website. Is that correct? When it comes time?
Correct, and we may actually establish a separate website really as an additional way to get public engagement. But yes, there will be information available.
Okay, and then maybe one other point, maybe at our next plan commission meeting, we can give an update in regards to that, just where that stands and some more information on that during our meeting or at the end of the meeting, we can give an update on that. Then going back to the petition here, I just have one question, pardon me, and I know it came up previously, and that has to do with the bank drive-through being located in the below grade. And maybe this is a question that's directed towards the petitioner, but in terms of security cameras and other things, I think it was stated last time, and maybe Mr. Whitmer can refresh us, but the where these ATMs are going to be located are going to have all that technology, if you will, as it relates to the security surrounding these ATM machines that are going to be located in the parking garage?
Yes, it's our what our understanding is the bank will have it fully cambered, and security would be actually probably better inside than it would be than an outside kind of situation.
And then the other question that I think came up, or not, in regards to the ATM machines, was that if they ceased being ATM machines, assuming this project goes forward, that the space in this below grade parking where these ATM machines were housed would be and could be converted to parking spaces within the planned parking configuration?
Correct.
Okay. Just because maybe ATM machines won't be around in 10, 15 years or 20 years. So it can be reconfigured down there. Okay. I have no other questions. I don't know, Kathy, if you have any follow-up comments before we take maybe a 5-minute break here, which I think was a good recommendation by Commissioner Moorhead.
I have no additional comments at this time.
Okay, it's just about 9:30. Why don't we take a break for 5 minutes to 9:35? And Kathy, what is the limitation, the time limitation? We come up against this every now and then when these meetings go late, but what is the time configuration or requirement?
The Plan Commission established regulations that were established by prior Plan Commissions is a mandatory adjournment time of 11 o'clock. The Commission certainly has the ability to extend that by motion. If you do so, I would, in the past, Plan Commissions have extended it only by 15-minute increments to, keep the discussion moving.
All right, so we'll keep the discussion moving hopefully tonight, and that won't become an issue. So thank you. Let's take an adjournment if we could for 5 minutes here. Thank you. open-ended is now closed. At this point in the meeting process, we have discussion and comment just with the commission members. Maybe I'll start the opposite order. Commissioner Moorhead, would you like to go forward?
Sure, thank you. I took a bunch of notes, so I'll just kind of read from those, and hopefully it's organized in thought. From a practical perspective, the application from the petitioner is not complete, so we can't, in my opinion, can't make a decision up or down tonight, because it wouldn't be based on the relevant factors. We wouldn't have the facts, and either side, whoever disagreed with us on a decision, could easily call it arbitrary and capricious. So I think, in my humble opinion, we can't make a decision on this tonight. Let's see. Okay, so there's some macro issues and some micro issues. On the macro issues, the lack of a CBD update is problematic at this point, maybe problematic lowercase p, but it would be super helpful to have that. And so we could consider this development in relation to that, or vice versa. The lack of a code provision on the roof decks or roof terraces is, in my opinion, super problematic, capital P, because we are now allowing having these things without any legal guidance or apparent legal guidance. And it's kind of like the wild, wild west. My particular focus is on the egress. I lived in the city for 15 years in a condo, and we were not allowed to build rooftop decks under the city code for, I think it was egress issues. And that whole business, rooftop decks, was a cash business under the table. And you know, the practical reality, it's a policy decision. If there's a fire on the deck and there's one egress and it's blocked, how do the people get out? And that's something the city needs to consider, and consider really ASAP. On the micro issues, I'm concerned about the general welfare component of the special use provision. This development will actually increase the vacancy in the CBD. What they're going to do is, sorry, the retail vacancy, I don't know if I said that, retail vacancy in the CBD. They'll take a tenant in another part of the CBD and bring it to its building, to their building, creating vacancy in that first building. And then they'll also have a cafe, a proposed cafe, a coffee shop or something like that, I think is what their petition said, in the development, which there's no tenant identified. So it'll actually increase the vacancy in the CBD. There really has been no meaningful consideration of the historic district by the petitioner. I asked the petitioner that, and they made references to, I guess, I'll say, I believe most of their references were to buildings that were outside of the B4 preservation business district. And I think that needs to be considered a little more fully. Specific points, the FAR is a significant issue. This building appears at present to be way too much bulk or mass, however you want to say it, in this space. And my rough calculation, if you add in the rooftop decks, the FAR is closer to 2.65. The parking exaction, the dedication of the diagonal spaces with the easement, the exaction, the payment in lieu, that should all be flushed out. We should know exactly how much dollars we're talking about and how we proceed on that. I am a little concerned that there's a lack of consideration about adaptive reuse of the existing building. I think that's important for all the reasons that people have said tonight. And there is a parking space that's underutilized and it's not the highest and best use of the property. But maybe there's a more creative way to develop this property. And I will note the petition in his or in their letter with their application, they did state there's, quote, no change in use, quote, little effect on traffic flow, and, quote, hours of operation are consistent with the existing building or will be consistent with the existing building. Those are, not to call it out in an argumentative way, but those are pretty much basically false statements. And I think a little more thought needs to go into how this development is going to impact the area. It would be good to see a shadow study. This is a very tall building. It is 46 feet 6 inches. We need to see how that would impact Deer Path and Bank Lane. I do have concerns about the parking analysis. It was done in July of 2021. That date, which is the summer, the low season here, plus the high retail vacancy in the area, plus COVID and people working from home, the numbers might be skewed. The ATM, honestly, with that, I don't think any of us are in a position to comment well on whether it's a good idea or a bad idea to have an ATM in a parking garage. I would prefer that we reach out, or the city staff reach out to the Lake Forest Police, the chief of police maybe, and have the police department bless that, because that, if there is an increase in crime with an ATM in a parking garage, that's the aspect of the city that's going to be burdened with having to deal with that. So if they bless it, I'd be much more comfortable. But as of now, I feel like we don't really know what we're talking about. And I guess, sorry, I'm looking at my chicken scratch. I think that's it for now. Bottom line is I would support a motion to continue, provided that the petitioner completes the application and then comes back with some responses to what's already been discussed by everyone involved in this meeting.
Commissioner Moorhead, thank you for those comments. I just have a point of clarification on your calculation on the FAR, and I think it might help the petitioner as well as it might help the city. And it just to understand the way you're looking at the calculation, you're saying that the FAR is, I think what you said, you calculated it at 2.6 based on, how are you getting at that calculation?
Yeah,
because it was different. Yeah, because the denominator was different for the city versus what you were doing it. And I just want to clarify that not only for the city, but for the petitioner.
Sure. The denominator is the same. I was adding in the rooftop terrace, what do they call them?
The rooftop terraces.
Terraces, yeah. Thank you. Because that in my mind, if you look at the code as an accessory use, the rooftop terraces really are incidental and subordinate to the purpose of the principal use. They really are accessory uses, and that would be included in the gross floor area.
And again, I'm just trying to understand. So if the rooftop terraces were taken out of your calculation, would your calculation would be more in line with what the city got, which would be, closer to the 2.0? Is that correct?
I believe so. I didn't back out the setbacks in the calculation, and yeah, I'm just an amateur at the FAR.
Yeah. No. And I'm just trying to.
But yeah, it would be closer to 2.0.
Okay. And your request back to the city is to seek clarity on the rooftop terraces that I think Kathy is addressed, but maybe some sort of opinion. And maybe that's the wrong legal context term to use, but get some sort of clarity as the way in which these rooftops relate to the code.
Yeah, or just add a code provision addressing the rooftops, so we have some I mean, this isn't necessarily specific to this petition, but this is overall.
No, I
Yeah,
understand.
so we'd have some guiding principles, guiding law.
Yeah, I understand. Okay. Again, I think your questions are directed also towards some of the comments that were raised and just trying to get better scope on the issues and the questions. So thank you. Commissioner Douglas.
Yeah, I think, from my point of view, the HPC's input is really pivotal to any discussion that we're going to have about most aspects of this petition, maybe not the drive-through, but most other aspects. And so I would be in favor of, getting the HPC's at least preliminary guidance before taking any action. With regard to the drive-through, I'm not so worried about security of the money, the cash that's in the machine. But what occurred to me was that by having a drive-through in the garage, you were basically opening your parking garage, which is, I would think of it as a private garage, but it's no longer private because the public's invited to drive in. And I don't know whether it's 24/7 or not, but it becomes a different kind of garage than I might ordinarily think of in a condominium development. So yeah, I agree with some of the other earlier public comments that the petition may not conform or doesn't appear to conform to the zoning code's requirements for the B4 preservation business district that refer to preserving the unique attributes of the historic elements and the unique village character of the core area, etc. So again, I'm hesitant to take any action without the HPC's guidance. With regard to FAR, the petitioner stated that they think they're under the 2.0, which, to Commissioner Moorhead's comment that the building is quite massive for the site, indicates to me that 2.0 is perhaps too much. From the staff report, it appears that the CBD plan development provisions allow for an increase in the floor area ratio to a maximum of 2.0, which I think is saying that we could prescribe something less than 2.0. Apparently, the existing zoning without the CBD plan development bonus is 1.25 times. So somewhere between 1.25 and 2.0 is a mass that HPC might find acceptable. And so again, I feel like we need HPC's guidance, even in prescribing what the FAR should be. That's the extent of my comments. Thank you.
And thank you, Commissioner Douglas. And just to get an understanding from you, and again, this is trying to get the FAR, you're deferring to the, at least at this point, a little to the HPC, among other things. Is that correct?
Yeah, well, and I don't think we have the information to determine what the appropriate FAR is. I did add up the areas that are on the plans that were submitted, but I think, for the office space or the retail space, whichever it ends up being on the first floor, those are probably rentable areas. So they don't include the actual walls of the building. They don't include vertical elements like stairs and elevators. Those are usually subtracted, before getting to a rentable area. And then the areas in the residential units are probably usable areas, so they don't count common space like corridors and again the vertical elements. So we don't really have the gross areas to be able to do any kind of calculation. But suffice it to say, if the petitioner thinks they're under 2.0, it's 2.0. 2.0 gives you a very massive structure for this property. And my guess is HPC is going to be comfortable somewhere between the existing 1.25 and 2.0, but we don't know where that point is. So yes, long-winded answer to your question. I'm deferring to HPC. Sorry.
No, I think
Drag it out.
that's helpful. Thank you, Commissioner Douglas. Commissioner Davey.
Well, I guess I'll start by, and I'm new to the Planning Commission as of this summer, but I've chaired a couple boards in town. One where we raised money and built a brand new building, and another where we redid a great old building in the Gorton Community Center. And I very much appreciated all the comments by the public and the material shared by the city staff. There's an incredible amount of information there, and I would say I also share with Tim Downey's sentiment. I kind of feel blessed and excited to have a bunch of fellow residents who are so engaged, and I would say especially enjoyed and appreciated Paul Bergman and Rami Lopat and the Preservation Foundation's detailed perspective, in preparation for the meeting and then in the meeting. I think that's what makes this a great process. I think simultaneously, I'm a little disappointed by people that call in and make things personal or take on our city staff personally. I think we're all better than that, and I hope that folks just remember that there's a process here, and try to be objective about it. And there were certain things that were explained during the meeting, I think, importantly about what our duties are and what our responsibilities are as members of the board or commission, to hear folks out in a process. So, in answer to what Mr. Whitmer requested and was looking for, which was feedback, because they are making an investment into a process. I think that Commissioner Moorhead in particular, you've given a number of pieces of feedback that I think are important. There's clearly, a series of open questions around parking and building heights and, and other areas that may seem mundane or technical to some folks calling in, but they're pretty important in the context of what our responsibility is as a plan commission, to ask those types of questions and to be engaging in discussions around those issues, especially when we do have also the Historic Preservation Commission that has such a responsibility in this instance as well. And I guess my feedback is that in reading the plan now multiple times this year to try to get myself up to speed for this volunteer position and applying, what that plan's goals are for the CBD, and I think what the special use permit process is, there are some questions that are open in my mind, but obviously I probably echo what everyone else is thinking here, which is ultimately a lot of the big issues that we're talking about here around demolishing a Stanley Anderson building or what this building might look like are really the purview of the HPC. So, I'm in support of having this go to the HPC and getting their take on the project, because we need that in order to make any decisions. But hopefully this process is one where we're giving the kind of feedback that Mr. Whitmer, Mr. Altunian are looking for, in terms of where we stand as a plan commission. So that's kind of where I am.
Thank you, Commissioner Davey. Those were nice comments. Thank you. Commissioner Pickus.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few comments. One of them regarding compatibility with the comprehensive plan, and some disappointment that we don't have one for the Central Business District right now. While that is kind of regrettable, it's to no fault of the petitioner. So I believe that, did I lose my video? I did. Sorry about that. I don't think we should, penalize the petitioner for not necessarily having that that compatibility. That's just a comment. they have the right to move forward with a petition. We have the responsibility to review it and to apply it against, what we have in plan today and per our codes today. Regarding rooftop decks, clearly that is a huge issue with the community, and I think that the city needs to put something on that. We need to develop some kind of standards or something that to provide some guidance to this petitioner and any others that have this considered. So I think that needs to happen before any final decisions are made. And then I'm gonna agree with everybody else and state that clearly this needs to go to HPC for their input. There's way too many variables that fall under their purview that they need to consider. So I would be in favor of continuing this petition as it goes through HPC. The feedback that I will provide the petitioner tonight is regarding the 2.0 FAR. From what's in the staff report, it appears that they are right at the 2.0 limit, and that's plus or minus, and that can be maybe debated back and forth as to whether they're over or under. But if they're anything, they're very close to that limit. And I think I'm having a little bit of a problem with the size and the mass. Can't blame them for trying to eke out every square foot they can get. But I think it's just maybe too much for this site, and I think they should consider possibly scaling the property back. But yeah, HPC will definitely have some input on that as well, because they are looking for a variance in the height as well. So those are my comments.
Thank you, Commissioner Pickus. Appreciate that. So my feeling, I echo the sentiments of my fellow commissioners. One of the first questions I asked, and I asked the petitioner, was that in regards to the Historic Preservation Commission, and one of the criteria being that was before us this evening was on and for special use permits, and one of the requirements, one of the three requirements, is that it get conceptual approval from the Historic Preservation Commission, and we obviously don't have that here this evening. So that echoes the sentiments that have been raised not only by the fellow commissioners but by many of the callers that called in. In regards to the FAR, I do think we need some clarity in regards to how it's being calculated specifically, as Commissioner Moorhead has raised. Maybe more clarity from the city in stating or taking a position on these terraces. Although I will say that while not rooftop terraces, terraces have been in existence in the city for a long time. I know that there's certain buildings, as was asked there on Oakwood, where terraces, albeit not rooftop terraces, but terraces have been in place in the city, since the late 70s. So I just add that as a comment. The parking, there was questions raised in regards to determining the actual number. Maybe that number of what would be necessary would get greater clarity once a final design has been reached. I would also, add that once the project does go back to the HPC, that the height issue, obviously among many of the other topics, be addressed and also taken into consideration with the sloping nature of the site. In regards to the ATM machine, I think the ATM machine I think it was Commissioner Moorhead, maybe it would be, gave this recommendation that it would be helpful maybe to have the police department, Lake Forest Police Department, weigh in on the safety nature of the ATM machine. I'm sure that an institution like First Midwest and would be and have parameters built in for safety that would probably go above and beyond what the police are setting, but still it should be something that should be nailed down. And I do think in regards to the ATM and parking, I thought I saw someplace that there's more than one level of parking in this building. But maybe there's a delineation between the residents and where the ATM machines are. I don't know, but some clarity on that would probably be helpful as well. And again, just to wrap it up, my comments, I think it's great to have, and I think it was Tim Downey, to give him another shout out that highlighted the incredible insight, intelligent, and comments on the whole that came through from all the callers in regards, to this project. But I would also like to remind everybody that certainly the Plan Commission, as we stand now, does not need to take the negative comments that are personal in nature, either against the petitioner or against the city and city staff. Everybody's doing the best job we can, and I in regards to the project, let's stick to the issues and everybody's point of view. Certainly, while I'm chairman here, is going to be heard and heard in a respectful manner. So I just want to add that as a final comment. It seems like it's been raised by a couple of the commissioners that maybe the best approach here would be a continuance of this and not make a ruling either way. But I certainly would like to hear maybe other comments in regards before we take a formal motion as to what the sense is of what we should do. And certainly I could turn to Kathy to get a recommendation as far as if we were to continue this, what that would look like.
Do you want me to comment now?
Sure. Maybe, and then we can get input from fellow commissioners.
Well, certainly it is appropriate for the commission to continue this matter. That would require a motion and a second, and then a roll call vote. In continuing it, I think it would be appropriate to refer to all the comments that you just made and provide direction to the petitioner and city staff to follow up on those comments, and to direct that the petitioner continue to work to refine the design aspects to get to a point to present them to the Historic Preservation Commission for conceptual review, all before coming back to the Plan Commission. So a motion in that direction. Mr. Chairman, you may also want to note you did have extensive public testimony this evening. You may want to note that further public testimony should be in response to new issues or new information that comes forward, so that people know they don't have to repeat everything that was said tonight. That will be incorporated into tonight's record. Does that help?
I think that does help. Is there somebody that wants to take a stab at a motion? Good.
Just a question, Kathy, do we also in that motion request that the HPC review this, or how does that work operationally?
Yes, I think I mentioned that directed to the HPC at the appropriate time for conceptual review prior to returning this matter to the Plan Commission.
I'll take a stab at a motion. I'll make a motion to continue this matter to allow the Historic Preservation Committee to conduct a timely review process and proceed accordingly. I would direct the city to take into consideration and pass along the comments that were raised here this evening by the Plan Commission. And finally, to close the public comment for the material that was presented this evening, but keep the public comment open for any new material that comes forward to the Plan Commission.
I will second that motion.
And Mr. Chairman, if you're ready, I will do a roll call vote. Oh,
Hearing, yes, go ahead.
Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay. Commissioner Douglas,
Aye.
Commissioner Davey,
Aye.
Commissioner Pickus,
Aye.
Commissioner Moorhead,
Aye.
Chairman Dixon.
Aye.
5 ayes, no nays, the motion passes.
Okay. Are there any other comments?
You do have the meeting calendar in front of you this evening for 2022. All of the meeting dates fall on the regularly scheduled second Wednesday of the month. Of course, we will poll before those meetings, and if necessary, can change a meeting date as we get into the year, but it would be appropriate if you're comfortable to approve a motion, or I'm sorry, for someone to make a motion approving the meeting calendar for 2022.
I'll do it. Motion to approve the Plan Commission meeting schedule for 2022.
Second.
And I do need to do a roll call vote. Commissioner Davey,
Aye.
Commissioner Pickus,
Aye.
Commissioner Moorhead,
Aye.
Commissioner Douglas,
Aye.
Chairman Dixon.
Aye. I just would add on the on that calendar, if for some reason anybody has knows right now that there has an issue, just let Kathy know. And if there's a vast majority of people that have a problem with the date, we can attempt to make an adjustment to the scheduled date. But thank you for making that motion to adopt the meeting schedule for 2022. There's also an opportunity for any other members of the public to address the Plan Commission for matters that are not on the agenda.
Mr. Chairman, I do not see any hands raised, and we do not have any phone calls.
Okay. Then is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you for your time.
Thank you all. Good night.
Thank you.